I'm going to share my screen a second because I want to make sure you all understood where the group sign in is. So for the main thing that I wanted to do in today's class is to go over the critique for the symbols project. I am also going to do a demonstration, but for the critiques, I'm going to do them in 4 groups. And so you need to choose which group you want to be in. If you haven't done that already, because I know some people have already found this, I had sent it as an announcement earlier, but if you go to the modules section of Canvas, under week 3, and then Wednesday for this week, there's a link at the very bottom that says link to choose critique group. And then I'm viewing this as an instructor, so it's probably a little bit different for you, but you should be able to then choose which group you want to be in. So you can be in either group 1, group 2, group 3, or group 4. The first group is going to start after this class. So we'll start at 2 o'clock. And then the second group will start at 2:45. The third group will start at 3:30. And then the last group will start at 4:15, okay? So you can be in whichever group you want to be in. There's a limit of 6 people in each group. So it looks, we haven't got many people that have already chosen it. So for anybody that's already here, it's like unlikely you're going to have a problem with that. But for people choosing later on, they might not be able to choose which group because the groups will fill up. So go ahead and do that first before we do anything else, and then I'll move on.
Excuse me, Professor?
Yeah, is that Nikki?
Yes, it's Nikki.
Hi.
So on the announcements link for each C++ class that starts at 2:15 on Mondays and Wednesdays. I believe I spoke to you about it at the beginning of the semester. Is there any way I could participate in this critique? Because I won't be able to come to that critique Zoom meeting.
Okay, so the
because my C++ class.
So you can't do any of those times today.
Sorry, go ahead.
You can't do any of the times that I specified today.
No, because my C++ class is from 2:15 to around I think 3:45.
So I have one of the classes.
And then I have
Oh, you have another class after that?
I have my ceramics class at 4:50.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe. Let me think about this.
I could probably post
you do it
my
tomorrow
icon
sometime?
Yeah, I have a class from 11:10 to 2 or to 11:10 to 1:45. But I could probably post my icons that I have on Canvas today. If someone wants to comment and critique it on there, but
yeah, that's fine. I think what we can do as well is I can also meet with you individually, and I'll critique it as well. So if you post it into the assignments, and then if you also want to get critique from other people, if you wanted to post it, remember that there's a discussion group that's called Student to Student.
Okay.
You can post it in there, and then you could ask people to critique it on there if you want.
Okay.
Okay. But also, if you want, we can set up a one-on-one meeting, and I can go over it with you, and I can give you my input at least. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Does anybody else have questions about that, as far as doing the critique?
What time was the last one again?
So it's going to be at 2, 2:45, 3:30, and then 4:15. So every 45 minutes.
Okay, great.
2. Okay. So it looks like I've only got 3 people that have chosen groups so far. Are you able to find that? Okay. And then the other thing I should say about the critique is, so when you turn them in, I should have mentioned this before, but when you turn in the projects to do the critique, I think it would be good to have not only the symbols that you've done in Illustrator, but to also, as part of the same PDF, if you could include the thumbnails, that way, if we wanted to look back at your thumbnails, we could also look back at them at the same time. So to create a multi-page PDF, I'll do a quick demonstration of this. But basically, you could take the files that you've already got. So let's say you've taken photographs or scanned in your thumbnails, and you wanted to put them together in a multi-page PDF. You could use Acrobat. So if you go to Adobe Acrobat and then you go to File, Create, and then you can choose Combine Files into a single PDF, you'll get this dialog box or this window. And then you can choose to add the files that you want to combine together. And then you would just choose them. So I don't really have anything here to combine it. Let's say I wanted to combine these images together into one PDF. But one might be like, you know, your Illustrator file. One might be the thumbnail. Three of them might be the thumbnails. But you'd add the files here. And then you would choose to combine them. It'll go through the process of combining. If at that point you wanted to, you could reorganize them. You could move pages. On this one, there's some errors for some reason. But once you've done it, you can then save that file as a PDF. And that way you have everything together. So that's probably the easiest way to do it. Another way you could do it is within Illustrator. If you had done your symbols on one document. So I'd ask you to do this tabloid, by the way, and the orientation to be horizontal. So it's 11 by 17 horizontal. And then you're going to remember that you're going to organize them on the page. So if I use this grid, you're going to have 5 across. So as you drag this grid tool out, if you use the down arrow on the keyboard, you can take away the number of rows. And if I use the left arrow on the keyboard, I can take away the number of columns. If I use the right, I'll add the number of columns. So I want you to have 5 columns and 3 rows. So you'll organize them like this on the page. I would leave like a little bit of a margin around the outside. That if you wanted to be super precise, you could measure off 1 inch in the corner to begin with by using the rectangle tool. If I went here, click, and set it to say 1 inch by 1 inch. And then I can bring up the guides, Command R, sorry, to bring up the rulers, Command R. And then I can put a guide from the ruler by dragging out from the left-hand side ruler. I can drag a guide out here, and then I can drag out another one here. And then if I position this in the bottom right-hand corner, we could do the same thing. Another way to create that margin would be to draw a rectangle that's the size of the document. So in this case, it's 17 tab 11. And then I want it to be 1 inch inside of that. So if I go to Path, Offset Path, we've used this feature before, remember, for the interlocking rings. I can do -1 inch. Press OK. Now I have this line 1 inch from the edge. I can do Command 5, which is View, and then go down to Guides. Can't find it somewhere. Guides, and then Make Guides, Command 5. And now when I drag this out, it'll be dragging it out where it's got exactly the same amount of space all the way around the outside. And then these, I just want them to be guides as well. I don't want these to show up eventually. So Command 5, remember, is the keyboard shortcut. And now I can put all my various symbols into these spaces, taking up a similar amount of visual space. So you'll have one symbol here, one symbol here, and so on. You want to leave a little bit of space around each of the symbols, some breathing room, so that we can see each symbol individually. And a little bit like when you go into a museum, you don't want to have paintings hung right next to each other because you can't see the bloody paintings properly. You've got to have a bit of space around them. So leave a bit of space around the symbols. They can be smaller, but we'll be able to see them as distinct objects more clearly. So remember that here's a couple of things to bear in mind about this if you haven't completely set this up yet. They should be set up in this way. So it's 11 by 17, 5 across, 3 down. They should also be in alignment with each other. So if I have, I'm just going to duplicate some of these to make it a little bit easier.
Professor, the symbols don't have to be exactly the same, correct?
The symbols don't what, sorry?
The symbols you're just showing are an example, and they don't have to be.
Oh yeah, these are just to show arrangements.
It doesn't have to be the exact same, right?
This is purely to show how you're arranging them on the page. So each symbol, there's going to be 15 different symbols. Each one will be different. So each one will be a thing that the student either loves or loves to do. So one might be, for instance, for running, one might be for cooking, one might be for, I don't know, cleaning, one might be for jogging, what have you. You know, like you've got all these various different things that you're doing the symbols for. But when you arrange them on the page, if you want to align objects together, there's various ways to do this. So for instance, these 3 objects should be in alignment with each other this way. So if we go up to the top here, you could do vertical align, or sorry, horizontal align center. So these are all aligned to the center of each other. We can also take all of these, and then you can align them through the vertical distribute center. Now, in this case, we also want to make sure that we have it set to selection, align to selection. So then there's the same amount of space here as here, right? So you'd want to do that for each of these, and then you can align them all this way. So we could take all of these and align them this way by choosing this one here, vertical align center. If it's easier for you, you can choose window align, and you'll have the panel as a separate panel. Let me move you guys out of the way for a second. You have this panel here where you can choose the different alignments. I sometimes find it easier visually here rather than having them all in one row. Part of that might just be that they've had this panel for years and years and years, and I've kind of got used to seeing it in this layout. But I just feel like it's easier to see all the vertical stuff here and the distributed objects here rather than having it all lined out. And then don't forget that there are 3 ways you can align it. Align to the selection. So that means like if I had these 3 objects selected, they're aligning based on each other. So if I'm doing distribute center, this one here, vertical distribute center, they'll end up aligning. Actually, that didn't do what I thought it would do. Oh, so this one is aligned to key object. If I have it aligned to selection, however, it'll align them, and I want this one. Yeah. And then this is to the artboard. So if you do it to the artboard, it's going to align them based off of the artboard, to the top of the artboard, to the bottom of the artboard, and so on. But that's the way you can align the objects on the page. But if you have this guide, you could also do it visually, because your objects, like here, the squares when they align, it's clear because they're 3 objects that are the same. But as your objects are all going to be different, and you align them, you can do it visually by just positioning them within that grid. You go, okay, that one needs to be in the middle of that grid, that needs to be in the middle of that grid. So I think that that's an easier way of doing it, and also probably ultimately a more effective way. I just wanted to show you the align panel, because in certain situations that can be very useful. It might be even for this, but ultimately you're going to turn in something along those lines. You'll have the various objects. You can turn the guides off. The guides are purely there as a guide to show you where to position stuff. So when you turn it in, you'll have one page like this, and then if we went to the artboard tool and I added some additional artboards, another way that I could add my thumbnails is to simply place them by doing file place. and placing my thumbnail sketches onto separate artboards within the Illustrator document, and then saving it out. And when you save the file, I want you to save it as an as an Adobe PDF format. Okay. The advantage of the Adobe PDF when you upload it to Canvas is that I can view it within the area which is called Speed Grader. So when I go into the Speed Grader area, I can look at each of the projects within the web browser without me having to download it. So when we're doing the critique, it makes it much easier. If you upload it in an Illustrator format, I won't be able to do that. The other thing to bear in mind is that when you save something as a PDF from Illustrator, you can still open it and edit it from Illustrator. So it doesn't really make any difference. So usually I save Illustrator files actually as a PDF, because if I have to send it to a client who may well not have Illustrator, they can still look at it. But also I can still work on it in Illustrator.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I don't think I saw on the actual assignment, it didn't specify if it needed to be in black and white or if it was in color. Can we do either?
It does specify actually. So it has to be black and white.
Okay.
It has to be black and white and no levels of gray. So only black, literally black and white.
Okay.
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 All right. So are you all clear on what you have to do in terms of submitting the project for the critique? All right. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, let me go to the handout for today's class. Sorry, bear with me for 1 second. Go back to this. So I'm going to introduce the second project. This is one of the 5 major projects, okay? So as you're turning this in for critique, remember that after today's class, and we've done the critique for the symbols project, you'll have until Monday to make changes to that, and then you can turn it back in. That's actually the one that I'll be grading. So nothing you've done up until this point is something I'm going to grade. So don't panic if you haven't quite finished it at this point. As long as we have something that we can critique, we're good. And then the next project that we're going to do is the character design project. On the second page of the handout for today's class is the description for the project, and I don't think I've yet uploaded it to the assignments, but it'll be uploaded later today probably. I have it set up, but I need to go over and check it before I actually publish it. So that's not quite there yet, but this is the description that will be there anyway. So for this project, you're going to design 4 different characters based on the names provided below. The first one is Skeeter. Skeeter is a middle-aged stoner skater punk. Takes it chill, likes to hang with his buds and play his bass. Agnes is a cantankerous old woman, gritty, funny, and has a bit of a potty mouth for someone in their 80s. Zombie Bunny, blank, numb, dead for all intents and purposes. Maybe a little smelly too. Those are the 3 names I'm giving you with little descriptions. And what I want you to do for the 4th one is come up with your own name for the 4th character, and then give a little description of what that character is, who they are. Okay. And then what you're going to do is by doing 4 sketches for each one of them. So for Skeeter, for instance, you'll do 4 sketches of what comes to mind when you think about a middle-aged stoner skater punk that takes it chill and likes to hang with his buds and play the bass. So you're gonna sit down and draw some sketches, just like with the other one. You could do those in Procreate on an iPad. You could do them in Photoshop with a Wacom tablet. You could draw them in a pencil on a piece of paper. It's up to you how you do the sketches for it. But it's really about sort of roughing in and sort of feeling out what that character could be. Is he skinny? Is he tall? Is he fat? And then also you can start thinking about the style of it. So before you start doing the sketches, or maybe at the same time, you could do a little bit of research about character design. So look at examples of character design, for instance, online, and see which styles resonate with you, or which style you'd like to attempt for this project. Just like with the first assignment, I want the 4 characters to feel like they belong together as a family. So imagine that these 4 characters were all part of the same TV show or the same online animated series or something like that. That they should feel like they belong together. Maybe they're all part of the same video game. So stylistically, they should be consistent. So it might be you decide to do something which is incredibly simple, minimal kind of character design, or maybe it's quite elaborate. But either way, all 4 of the characters should fit with that same kind of approach. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to look at different approaches to drawing characters. And we'll also talk a little bit, starting next week, I'll start talking a little bit about things to think about. So one of the things to think about right off the bat is the silhouette of the character. What shape do they form? If you were to have them just in silhouette, what do they look like? Would they be recognizable? If you think about Mickey Mouse, for instance, one of the things that makes him such a great cartoon character is that his silhouette is recognizable instantly. And that's true with most characters. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like a cartoon character or stuff. It could be like a comic book style, anime style, manga style. It could be like a very super cute, or it could be almost completely realistic. You're going to choose the style yourself, but the 4 characters should feel like they belong to them. They should all have a kind of personality to them based off of the name. They should sort of project that. And if you want to, you could incorporate props into it. So the character, for instance, like the old lady, for instance, might be waving a stick in her arm as a prop, that kind of thing. So that's the next assignment. And there's a sort of breakdown of the steps involved. Research, roughs, choose one of the roughs and then do it in Illustrator, present it for critique, make revisions, and then turn it in for grading. And it's got the dates for when those are due. So the first critique, the critique for the project is on week 6. And then they turn it in the following Monday. All right. So that's the next assignment. And then there is so that's the next project. There's another exercise sheet that we're going to do this week, which is a little bit different. So the last 2 exercise sheets have been a series of little kind of exercises where we build symbols. For this one, I'm going to have you doing a tracing exercise, which is the purpose of this is twofold. One of them is to kind of look at how you use the pen tool and practice using the pen tool really effectively. And then the other aspect of it is to talk about layers and the use of layers in Illustrator. And then from an artistic design point of view, it's an exercise in how you take something which is a complex image created out of continuous tone gradients and subtle transitions of tone, and convert it into sort of like a flat version of that, where it's Placastil style. So I'm going to show you some examples of Shepard Fairey's work. You may be familiar with his work. He's a pretty well-known artist. I never remember how to spell his name, so this is probably wrong. So this is probably one of his most famous pieces, the Obama poster, Hope. And the way that this is produced is by taking a photographic image and then tracing it in Illustrator. So ultimately, it ends up as a screen print. Most of Shepard Fairey's work is designed for screen printing. And with screen printing, you very rarely print using a dot pattern of CMYK, because the dot pattern is very big and it looks kind of messy. So it's more usual in screen printing to break things down into a series of what are called spot colors. So in this case, this has been broken down into 1, 2, 3 spot colors. And then there's an additional color, which is the paper, the white. And then there's an additional color created, at least visually, by mixing the white and that light blue as a series of lines. So I don't know if you can see this very clearly, but there's lines that go through that part of the shading, which makes a transition from this blue to that white, makes a more subtle version, or a lighter version, I should say, which subtly transitions the tonal value there. One of the things that I think that Shepard Fairey is very good at with these types of illustration is the way that he breaks an image down and the way that he forms the shapes. You see a lot of people who have done kind of pastiches of the Obama poster, like this one. I think you'd agree with me that it doesn't really have quite the same skill level as that one, right? And it's really to do with thinking about what shapes. This one's not a terrible one, by the way. Some of them are just absolutely horrendous, the way people break this down. But there is a skill to the way that you take a photographic image and then convert it into a series of shapes which represent that photographic image in a flattened, crisper version. It relates to a style of design called Plakatstil, or Plackerstil, as most Americans say. It's a form of design which its German means poster style. And it started at the end of the 1800s, beginning of the 20th century. In cities like Paris and London and New York, where posters was the major form of advertising, it was realized that making posters that were incredibly elaborate are more difficult to see than posters which are flat and simple. So they started doing this style of posters where the designs were very, very simplified. If you search for Plakatstil, it's spelled Plakatstil, STIL. As I said, it's a German word that means poster style. I think in the United States, everybody that I've heard pronounce it in America pronounces it Plackerstil. But according to a German friend of mine, it's pronounced Plakatstil. So it's but basically it's this idea of taking the image and making it very simplified and flattening it. So this time the process would have been different, but you can imagine this being done in Illustrator today, and this is done, like the beginning of the 20th century, but this could have been done today, and you would do it in Illustrator without a doubt. Illustrator lends itself to this style of illustration incredibly well. So I have done an illustration to show you as an example. For what I would like you to do is to set up like a Zoom profile picture, so that when you haven't got your video camera on, what I'll see is this picture of you that you did in Illustrator. So you can do a screen capture of yourself on Zoom, or you can do another profile picture. But take a profile picture of yourself and then trace it. So this is the original photograph that I got, which is just simply a screen grab off of Zoom of me sitting in my living room. And then this is the finished version. So I had wanted at the beginning of this course to have you guys do a little bio, but I ended up doing a survey. If you want to do this, this isn't a compulsory part of this assignment, because I already think it's enough work involved in it. But if you'd like to, you could also put a little bit of a bio about you at the end of it, once you finish the illustration. So on this one, I've actually got two versions of the illustration. The top one right here is cut out with a clipping mask. So I haven't gone over making clipping masks yet, but I'll go over it afterwards. It's a way for you to cut out either an illustration or a photograph or what have you, and as a form of mask based off of a panel. So if I hide that, underneath that, I then have a white rectangle which has the opacity lowered. So if I lower this a bit more, you'll see that I actually have the whole illustration there underneath it, which hasn't been cut out. So you see the background and everything, but it's being screened back so that I can see the writing over the top. But this is really what I want you to do. I want you to do a tracing of a photograph of yourself. You don't necessarily have to make it as elaborate as this, by the way. But to fulfill the requirement of it, I just need you to show me that you've understood the idea of it and that you've gone about tracing a photograph of yourself. This is not an easy assignment, and it's only worth 3 points. So I would like you to do your best, and I would suggest that it's a really good exercise for anybody to do that's interested in improving their understanding of this software. It gives you a kind of a really solid understanding of how to use the pen tool through practice. The pen tool is perhaps the most accurate way for you to create shapes. So there are other ways, lots of different ways that you can make shapes, but the pen tool is an incredibly useful tool, and it also works the same way in Photoshop, or almost exactly the same. There's one slight difference, but basically the same. In Illustrator, Photoshop, it works in InDesign. So if you learn this tool, you can use this tool in a variety of different software. Also, if you learn to create paths in Illustrator, you can use those and export them to 3D programs and then extrude them or revolve them to create more complex 3D shapes. It's a very useful thing to get to grips with. I was fortunate. Early in my career, I ended up working for a service bureau, which they don't exist anymore. But service bureaus were places that made film for printing. And I worked there as a graphic designer, but I ended up having to do all of the service bureau stuff as well, where we would output filmers and so on. And one of the jobs was to create clipping masks for a jewelry company. And a clipping mask is where you draw around the outside of an object, then select it and the photograph, and then clip it so that the photograph is cut out to the shape of the path. So you can imagine with a necklace where you go all the way around the chain of the necklace and then all the way around the little decorative bits of the flowers and the ornamentation on the necklace and all inside the chain links and so on. And you're making paths. That was my job for a while. So I got really good at using the pen tool very early on because I was doing hours and hours of drawing with the pen tool. Like pretty much anything else, you get good at doing something by doing it a lot. There's a theory that's been around for a long time called the 10,000 hour rule, which states that if you work on something for 10,000 hours, you will become a master at it. It doesn't really matter what you do, playing cello, playing football. It's practice, basically, is what it comes down to. The more you do something, the better you get at. And so the idea of this assignment in part is for you to practice using the pen tool. And then the other thing about it is I've got a bunch of layers set up in here. And this one gets even a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to do a little bit of a demonstration of this exercise. I don't want to go too long on the demonstration just because we're going to do the critiques, but I'll do a short demonstration which makes it a little bit simpler. But my basic philosophy that I'm teaching you in terms of the way that you use the layers in Illustrator for this exercise is that, first of all, in Illustrator, you should understand that layers are not an essential component. In Photoshop, you really have to use layers. To do almost anything in Photoshop, you have to use layers. In Illustrator, you could do almost anything on one layer. You could do almost everything, I should say, on one layer. As long as you understand how to lock, hide, go into outline mode, how to work within the program. Because all of the objects that you're creating are ultimately separate objects, it gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of layers. So the layers are purely organizational. You can think of them a little bit like a filing cabinet. So there's a teacher at OCC, Chris Nielsen, who teaches the 181 class. He teaches layers quite differently than I do, and I've always thought this is quite interesting. I have a lot of respect for Chris Nielsen. I think he's a great teacher, really good teacher. But his use of layers, he encourages students to use lots and lots of layers so that when they're doing a portrait like this, you might end up with thousands of layers or hundreds of layers for the finished illustration. So you might have a layer, for instance, which is for just for the pupil, and another layer which is just for the iris, and another layer which is just for the eye shape, and so on. My own personal philosophy is that I think that if I think of it like a filing cabinet, I would want to organize things into big chunks. That's the idea of the organizational system, is I go, okay, so instead of having a file folder, which is for like my American Express card January and an American Express card February, I have one which is for credit cards. I have one folder which is for credit cards, and everything to do with credit cards is there, and I tend to put the last one in the back. So they're kind of all organized, you know? But if I have a folder for every single piece of paper, the filing system to me seems irrelevant, you know? So the idea for me is to organize things into big chunks. So the first thing to do when you're doing a project like this is to look at the photographic image and break it down in your mind into layers. And so the way I would break it down would be the background is all one layer. Maybe the chair is another layer. The shirt is another layer. The skin, in other words, my neck and my face is another layer. The glasses I'll put on their own layer, and the hat I'll put on their own layer. Now, obviously, to some extent, the way that I'm defining those shapes is really based off of my own logic. You know, it's my own way of thinking about it. And you could break down the layers in a very different manner. So that's not really what's important. It's just thinking about it, why am I using them? What's the purpose of the layers? The purpose of the layers is so that you can lock certain parts whilst you're working on something else. And it's an organizational device. So we're putting it into chunks. The other thing to bear in mind in Illustrator is that you can have sub-layers. So for instance, within a particular layer, you could have another layer inside of that. So I'm going to copy this image. I'm going to make a new Illustrator file. I'm going to paste the image. And then if I want the artboard to fit to the size of the image, I can go to the artboard tool and I can go up to here where it says the size, and I can choose fit to selected art. Once I've done that, this particular layer wants to be a template layer. Now, if you're starting this project from the beginning, you might be placing the image rather than just copying and pasting it. So if you're placing the image, you go to File, Place, and you place the photographic image. And when you place it, you would choose Template here. So anytime you trace something, you want to choose Template. I would also have Link unchecked. So does anybody remember why you would check link, or why you'd want it to be unchecked? Does anybody know the difference between having it linked, or if it's not linked, what would it be? Does anybody know the answer to either of those questions? If it's not linked, what would it be? And what's the purpose of linking it or not having it linked?
Added.
Melissa?
If it's unlinked, it would be in the Illustrator media.
If it's not linked, you bring the entire image, all the information necessary for that image is brought into your Illustrator document. If it's linked, it's only creating a connection to the original source file, which means that it's dependent on that connection. If you take that Illustrator file somewhere else, and you don't take the original file that you placed in there along with it in the same relative location, so basically they're in the same folder, and you take that folder, that would be okay. But if you took just the Illustrator file, but you didn't take the place file along with you, when you open it up in Illustrator in this other computer, it's going to tell you that the file is missing. So the advantage of having it linked is that if you wanted to edit the photographic image that you placed into Illustrator, you could go to the Links panel in Illustrator, click on Edit, and then it would open it in Photoshop. You could edit it, save it, and it would update automatically in Illustrator. But for the purpose of what we're doing here, I would suggest that you'd want it to be embedded. So you don't have to worry about the linked file anymore. That's the one we're going to trace. And then you'd want to have template on. As I didn't place it, if you place an image and you forgot to put template, you can change any layer in Illustrator to a template layer by simply double clicking on it. And then in there's a checkbox that says template. So this is perhaps the most important bit of advice about tracing something in Illustrator, is that the layer that the image is on should be a template layer. Does anybody know why? What's the purpose of a template layer?
It makes it transparent so you can see through it and place it on top, right?
Yes, so it does do that. That's one of the things it does. It actually doesn't really make it transparent as such, I don't think. It dims the image, so it screens the image back is what it's doing. And you can edit that if you want. If you double click on it, this is this setting here. So you can actually take that off if you want, but it's still a template layer and it would look like it did normally. The reason for having it screened back or dimmed, having the image dimmed, is that it makes it easier for you to see what you're drawing over the top. But if you can't see the photographic image very well, because the image is kind of light, you could increase the dim setting to say 60%, and then it wouldn't be quite as dimmed. But the main reason for having it as a template layer is that when it's placed on a template layer, you can see the photographic image when you're in outline mode. That's really crucial because oftentimes when you're drawing, you're going to cover up stuff that you're going to have to draw afterwards. So let's say, for instance, I drew the shape of my face. I've now covered up my glasses and my nose and my mouth and stuff. And so it's going to be difficult for me to draw them. But if I can go into outline mode and see the photograph underneath, I can toggle backwards and forwards between outline and preview to do this drawing pretty seamlessly. And we don't have to worry about them. There is a couple of other things. So like I said, it's a non-printing layer. So this image, if you look here, print is unchecked. So that means that if you did a tracing, let's say I did a tracing on myself, but I left the background image there. Even if I turned it off, if I went to send it to print, it might print. In fact, it would print. If it's a template layer, it won't ever print. It also doesn't export. So if I exported it to like a layered Photoshop file, the template layer wouldn't go with it. But the most important thing is that idea that you can view it in outline mode. So I'm going to make a series of layers. One is going to be called background. One is going to be called shirt. One is going to be called skin. So this is going to include my neck, my face, my ear, all of that stuff. I'm not separating that part out. That's one chunk. And then the next part is going to be called hat. And the next part is going to be called the glasses. So those are my main top level layers. And then I'm going to start on the background. So on the background layer, when you're doing this exercise, you don't necessarily, like on mine, I have done all the detail in the background and stuff because I'm just a bit OCD and I like doing this project myself. And I like getting into all the little details. But if you wanted to, for the background layer, it may be that you just keep it as a flat color and you focus on the detail in the face rather than on the background. That's up to you. I'm just going to leave the background for right now. And then on the shirt layer, I'm going to draw the shirt out. So remember, one of the aspects of this assignment is to really get to grips learning the pen tool. So the things to remember about using the pen tool is that you click right to make an anchor point. And then as I'm dragging, I'm going to add points wherever there's a change in direction. So I'm going along here, and then in this case, it dips down a little bit. I've zoomed in really close, as you notice. So this enables me to draw more accurately. And so as I'm dragging, you see like this comes down here, and then it starts to go back up. So at that point in the valley, I'm going to click and drag to add a point. The other thing to bear in mind, because people oftentimes get this muddled up, is you're dragging in the direction that the path is going. So I'm starting here and my general path is going in this direction. So as I drag my handle, it's going in that direction. Oftentimes I see students do this kind of thing, where it's like they're going back on themselves. And it ends up creating a bit of a mess. The other mistake that people oftentimes do is that they just put way too many points. So there's like all of these points all along here, and you inevitably end up with like a more ragged line because each of those points is a potential change in direction. So generally speaking, like any principle, there are times when it doesn't apply. So for instance, I might want to make a path which has a very kind of jagged line, in which case I want to make lots and lots of anchor points. But in this case, I'm trying to follow this path as smoothly as possible. So I'm adding a point and dragging to create the curve wherever there's a change in direction. I'm also using the space bar as a keyboard shortcut. This is very useful when doing this because we're zoomed in so close I don't want to have to switch to the hand tool when I run out of space, because first of all, it's a waste of time. It's annoying. But also I'm going to have to reconnect with the path. If I go over here to move, and then I go back to the pen tool, first of all, it's cumbersome and I've wasted time. But also now I have to go back here. Otherwise, I'm starting a whole new path, which is not what I want to do. Notice that when I put my cursor over this path now, because I'm reconnecting, it has a diagonal line. You see that? So that means I'm reconnecting with the path. If you do lose the connection with the path, make sure that you reconnect to it. Now, when I get to this point, the shirt interacts with me. And so what do I do here? We could do one of two things. We could go round the neckline and draw this shape and then go along there. Or we could just go straight across and we can leave the neckline for the face itself. So when I draw the face out, I can draw that over the top. Now, as I have the skin above the shirt, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to go straight across here because the face will sit on top of this and cover it up. So I don't have to draw this accurately. There's no point in drawing that path again and trying to match it. I can have this other shape sit right on top of it. So let me zoom back in again. I'm going to reconnect with the shirt on this side and then continue on my way. I'm doing this, by the way, on my laptop with a trackpad. But it's actually easier to do it. If you have a pressure-sensitive tablet with a stylus, this would be like if I was doing this as a freelance project and I was very busy and I had a lot of this stuff to do, I would definitely do it with the tablet rather than doing it with the trackpad. It would be much easier. Once you've drawn out the shape, you can double click on the eyedropper tool. I would suggest that you set the raster sample size to 5 by 5 average. So by default, this is a point sample. Point sample means it's picking the color from one individual pixel in the photograph. Whereas if you set it to 5 by 5 average, it's averaging some pixels around it, which means that you get more of a consistent color. Because if you look at those colors close up, one pixel next to another might be quite a radically different color, but we're trying to get an average of that color. And
How did you,
yeah, go ahead.
how did you change that to the raster setting of 5 by 5 again?
You double click on the eyedropper and then you set it here.
Okay.
So now if I choose like a sort of middle tone here, because I'm going to add highlights and shadows afterwards, this is what I've got. You'll probably be shocked, first of all, by how dark the color is that you eyedropper. But remember that the image that we have on this base layer is screened back. So it'll look darker than the one that you're eyedroppering. It also tends to look more intense, the color, because it is just a completely flat color. It feels more intense than it really is. But bear in mind, we can adjust all of the colors afterwards, and we're going to take a look at that in detail later on. But basically, what we can do for right now is we can draw out the shape, eyedropper a basic color to get us started, and then we can move on to the next shape. So the next shape is going to be the skin. I'm going to do Command Y, and I'll do the same thing. I'm going to draw around the outside of here. If you want to experiment with other tools, so the idea of this exercise is for you to really practice using the pen tool. And I would suggest that you try to take that opportunity to really do that and really use this as an opportunity to learn how to use this tool properly. But you could also experiment with some of the other tools. So I'll show you those in a second. The other thing you can do when you're zoomed in like this and you're working with the pen tool is that if you hold the Command key, it will give you the last selection tool. Now, what I want to have is the direct selection tool so that I can readjust points. But as you're working on the path, if you hold Command, you'll get the direct selection tool. Remember that this is only temporarily. In the tool panel, I'm still on the pen tool. I haven't left the pen tool. I just temporarily have access to this whilst I'm holding Command. As soon as I let go of Command, I'm back on the pen tool. but it means that I can adjust the path as I go along. And then as soon as I let go, you'll notice that I'm still connected to the path. So then I can go up here and continue with the rest of the skin. I'm going to go underneath the beard. I'm going to treat the beard basically as a separate thing. So all I'm drawing is the skin. I'm also treating the hair as a separate thing, but I'm going to draw the hair over the top of this, so the skin will go behind there and behind the hat. So again, the hat is going to go on top of this, and the hair is going to go on top of that. So I can just draw the path going sort of straight across at that point. And then I can eyedropper some skin color, and then that's where I've got so far. So again, the skin color might be surprising initially. But when you start going through it and working on it and adding things, it starts to make more sense. The shapes initially might seem surprising as well. But if you just trust it and you're following what you see, you should do pretty well. Okay, I'm going to do, the next one is the hat. So I've made a video for this, by the way. I haven't uploaded it just yet. In fact, I tried uploading it just before the class and it gave me an error message for some reason. So I have to check that afterwards. But if it doesn't, for some reason, if there's some, if the video is corrupt or something, I'll make another one because the video wasn't particularly great for it anyway. But I'll upload this video afterwards, after the class. And then we'll eyedropper that point. For the glasses, this bit gets a little bit involved because there's a compound shape involved with it. The glasses have holes in them, obviously, where the lenses are. So for the frame of the glasses, let me make sure I'm on the right layer. For the frame on the glasses, I'm going to draw the outside shape first. And I'm going to do this a little bit kind of sloppy for right now, just to save time, so you don't have to sit through me trying to be too precise about this. But I would want to do this a little bit more precisely. The other thing you might consider as part of your working process, this is what I generally do, is that I start off by drawing the things out somewhat roughly. So I do it fairly accurately, but I don't worry too much if it's slightly off, because I'll go back afterwards and clean it up by using the direct selection tool and readjusting the path. But it just sort of puts in the basic shape to begin with. So I've got that. Like on this one, for instance, if I zoom in, this path is kind of out of position. So if I select it, I can drag this anchor point over a little bit, pull this one up a little bit, readjust this one. And eventually we can get that path into the proper place. But to begin with, I might just start with it being a little bit rough, just so I get it sort of blocked in as quickly as possible. That's a matter of, you know, your own approach as to whether you want to start off and do it super accurately to begin with, or whether you want to start off a little bit rough and then adjust it. The other thing that you can do is if you start off by just drawing points. So for instance, I know that there will be a point here with handles because there's a curve. So I click there. Then down here, I might add another point, and then I'd add another one here, and then add another one here. You could just draw points very quickly, and then you could go in and you could add the handles afterwards by holding Option. This will give me the anchor point tool, or you could choose the anchor point tool from here, and then go in here and readjust it. So again, using the Command key, I can switch them between the direct selection tool and the anchor point tool by using the Command key. So I can adjust the handles with the anchor point tool. So this isn't a method that I use, but it was a method that I saw years ago in a book. and I've known other people that use this method where you start off with just the points and then you add the curves in afterwards. It doesn't really resonate with me, to be honest with you. I find it kind of a clunky way of working, but we all think a little bit differently and we all have our own kind of approaches to it. And you may find that that particular method works for you. So once I've drawn those two shapes over the top of the glasses, I can then select all three of those shapes. And we have several options as to how we can make the lenses holes out of the shape of the glasses. One of them is to do Command 8 or Control 8 on a PC. What that's actually doing is Object, Compound Path, Make. Another way you could do it is you could go to Window, Pathfinder. There's someone. And then you could do minus front. And then lastly, you could use the shape builder tool and you could option click on those spaces. So either method will do the same thing, whichever one makes more sense to you. I usually use the keyboard shortcut with that just because it's quick. You can see that my glasses are not accurate, that they need to be cleaned up a little bit. I'd want to go in there and adjust the paths, but it's got me basically where I want to be, and then I can go in and refine it afterwards. Okay, so I've got pretty much all of the major shapes in place. Now what I want to do is start adding some detail into it. So to add some detail into it, we'll talk about the layers a little bit. Like I said, in Illustrator, you don't necessarily have to use layers, but if you're using them, you're using them as an organizational device. So my suggestion is you want to clunk everything into big chunks, and then within those big chunks, you could break it down further by using sublayers. So this is purely a suggestion. You could have all of these be top level layers if you wanted to, but I'm going to suggest that like in the skin area, if we select that layer and then choose this icon right here, create new sublayer, we can add a layer in this layer, and I'm going to call this face details. Now it might look like this layer has two layers inside of it, but actually what you've got is this layer that we've just added, and then we have a level. Every layer has a level or levels, and every object is a level. So everything you draw, every shape you draw, whether it's a piece of type or it's a square or it's an amorphous shape or it's a path or whatever it is, occupies a level within Illustrator. The glasses, by the way, this one here is a kind of unique object insofar as it's three objects which are seen as one. So it's a compound path, but that occupies one level. So the shapes which are inside of a compound shape cancel out the outside shape. You'll notice that this inside shape, if I select it, is colored the same color as the outside shape because it is the same shape. This is a compound shape. So Illustrator sees this whole thing as one shape. If I drag this outside, you can see that it's black. If I was to drag it slightly outside, half it will be black and half it will be a hole. So when two shapes occupy the same level, they cancel each other out and create a hole. So this is a compound shape. But every single object you draw in Illustrator occupies a level within the layer. That's different from layers. So in the skin, I've got this face details need to be above this path because this path is the skin itself. If you wanted to, you could even change the name of the object. So you could give this object, you could call it skin as that. I've left those brackets because that way it tells me that this isn't a sublayer. Otherwise, visually, there's no way of me knowing that this is a sublayer or whether it's just an object. So I leave those tags on the sides of it to indicate to me. But you can label them if you want to. So now in the face details, what you'd want to do is go in and add any of the details you want to add in. So here's a couple of suggestions. Like with the skin, for instance, you might want to add some shadow. There's a couple of ways that we could do that. I could start off with the shadow being the base color and then draw lighter shapes over the top of it. What I'm going to do here, though, is I'm going to draw a shape around the side of the face, which indicates the shadow. And then I'm going to delete it with the shape builder tool. So again, with the pencil, I'm going to draw my shape. This I'm going to do on this face details layer. And I'm going to have it go, let's see, we'll start it over here. I'm going to have it go under the hat, like this, along here. Remember, I'm defining the shadow of the face. Like, where's the shading? And one thing that you can do as a way to indicate the fact that the tonal value is fading out is that you can make the shape itself fade out. So for instance, here, I could do another line that does that. And then I could go up here, and then I can go down here. So the shape itself fading out, like here, for instance, this is not very apparent, but there's a little bit of a sinking in the cheek here. So if you go in here and create that kind of a shape where the shape is tapering out, it has the visual effect of operating a little bit kind of like a tonal value fading out. This is what people who did wood carvings or woodcuts as a printmaking process would oftentimes do, is they would do these grooves into the shape because you're printing just in black usually. So you're going to make a gray by having these shapes fade out. So here it gets into the beard, which I'm going to do over the top anyway. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but I'll add a little bit of this sort of general area of tonal value. And then I'm going to go down into the neck and we'll continue the shading here. Again, having the shape fade out, in this case it sort of really does kind of fade out a little bit as well, will help to make the tonal value fade out. Okay, I'm going to have to finish up in a minute so we can do the critiques. I need to start, this shape needs to start outside of the shape and needs to overlap the other one. So to kind of show you what I mean, I'm just going to go into outline mode and then let's change the blending mode for this. So if I go to window, open up the transparency panel and change the blending mode to multiply, you'll see that that area is now making the skin darker. So this isn't really the color I want, but I'm going to ignore that for right now. Now I would want to select both of these shapes. So I would select the face shape plus the area of shadow that I've added. Then using the shape builder tool, I can simply option click on that part on the outside. And now it's cut it so that it fits to the same shape as the head. We can always change the color of this later on if we wanted to. So maybe this needs to be a little bit brown or something. And you can also adjust the level of opacity, you know, to adjust how much that affects it. There's some other stuff I want to talk about with this tracing demonstration, but I'm going to leave it for right now, and I'll upload the video probably later today or tomorrow that goes along with this. So I have one, but I couldn't get it to upload to YouTube, so I might end up having to make it again, I'm not sure. But either way, that gives you the basis of it. Just to recap, in summation, when you're doing this, first of all, when you place the image into Illustrator, it should be on a template layer so that when you're tracing stuff, you see here, I've already covered up the mouth and everything. But if I go to Command Y, I can still see the photograph. The only reason I can see that photograph is because it's on a template layer. If I take template off and then do Command Y, you'll see that actually all I see is a rectangle for where the photographic image is. I don't see the photographic image at all. So it's important that you set it as a template layer, otherwise it makes that assignment incredibly difficult. The other thing I would suggest is that when you're working on it, you can organize it by the big chunks in the image. So break the image down, like it might be the hair, for instance, as one layer. Another layer might be the face, another layer might be the body, okay? Another layer might be the background. Break it down to the big chunks. And then if you wanted to, you could put sub-layers inside those layers for doing things that are more detail-oriented. Like I said, they don't necessarily have to end up as sub-layers. This face details could just be a separate layer above the skin. It doesn't really matter. It's just how you organize it, okay?
So how do you do the sub-layer?
So you can make a sublayer either by dragging an existing top level layer over the top of a layer, and that automatically then puts it inside of that layer. The other way that you can make a sublayer is if you select a layer and then go down to the bottom here, you have an icon for creating a new layer, but next to it, there's one for creating a new sublayer.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that would put a new layer inside that particular layer.
Okay.
Whilst we're on layers, let me just mention a couple of other things of note. So one of them is that if you double click on a layer, you get the layer option. So here you can change the color of the layer. This is useful because sometimes you might get, particularly when you've done a lot of layers, you start getting weird colors like a neutral gray, which when you start trying to trace over the top of something, it's really hard to see your anchor points. You know, like if I draw on here now, and I select this, it's hard to see those anchor points. But if I double click on my layer and make the color something which is more easily seen, I can see my anchor points more clearly. Also, you can lock all the layers by dragging through them, or unlock all the layers by dragging through them. You can lock each one individually, obviously. And you can also hide all the layers by dragging through them or show all the layers. And then also if you option click, you can show an individual layer. So if I option click on the glasses, I just show that glasses. If I keep option held down and click on the glasses again, it will show all the layers that were previously visible. Okay, so I think I've covered everything I wanted to do for this for right now. Let me just get back to the handout for today's class real quick. I was going to go over the stroke panel in some more detail and also talk about the art brushes, but I think I'm going to leave that for Monday's class because I want to go into the critiques, and I don't think we have time to really go over that right now. And I was also going to talk about the variable width profiles. So we have gone over that before. I'm going to leave that as well, and we'll go over that again in next week's class. So for this week, we're going to do the critique, and then after the critique, you're going to make changes to the symbols project and resubmit it for Monday. And then I will meet with people individually to go over that and give you a grade for it, okay? The other thing that's due this week, which is also due by Monday, is this tracing exercise. So this tracing exercise isn't so important in terms of the points. I want to make this clear. The symbols project is the big project, right? So this is worth 30 points. The tracing exercise is like one of those exercise sheets that we did the last couple where there are just exercises. It's really sort of teaching you a route process, how to place stuff how to place an image into Illustrator so you're ready to trace it. So remember, it needs to be a template layer. And then how to use the pen tool to create shapes over the top of that. So you can, for that particular project, you can do this with as much detail as you want to put into it. You can get carried away with it if you want. You might really like doing. I love doing this stuff. I could spend hours and hours doing it. More detail the better. I love doing it. But some people you might not have time to do that kind of thing. So in terms of strategy, you'd be better off putting your effort towards the symbols project because that's the one that's worth more points. It's worth 30 points. So I'm going to end for right now, and then we're going to start the first Zoom meeting. So let me take a look on Canvas to see who's signed up to the first group. So it looks like I've got 2 people in the first critique. I've got Hannah, oh, 3 actually. Hannah, Amy, and Elias. Is there anybody else that want to be in this first critique group? This is going to start right now. If you want to be in this group, you've got to have your project uploaded to the assignments. And remember, when you upload it, I want to have them 5 across, 3 down. And then I also would like you to have it with the thumbnails included in the same document. Is there anybody else that wants to join this first group?
I have a question. Are you supposed to label the activities, or it's all obvious from the fact that they're icons to represent them?
Yeah, you don't have to label them. Actually,
Okay.
in some ways, I'd rather you not, because that way we can try and see if we can understand them without the label. That's a good question, Lydia. All right, so if you're not going to be in this critique, you can take off for right now. If you want to sit in, the critique, you're welcome to sit in through the critique. But if you're not in this first group and you want to be in the later one because you want to work on the project a little bit more, obviously go and work on the project and then you can submit it later on. All right. So who wants to present first? I've got Hannah, Amy, or Elias. Amy, do you want to present first?
Okay.
So do you want to share your screen, or shall I take it from the file that's uploaded to Canvas and share that?
It's uploaded.
Uploaded? Okay, I'll take a look at it. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. So before we start, when we do the critique, what I would like you to do, the purpose of the critique, obviously, is for you to get an outside perspective on the work that you're doing. I think as a creative, it's very easy to be too close to a project to really be able to see it. So for instance, with something like this particularly, you're designing a symbol. Obviously, you understand what it means because you're the person who did it and you had this in mind. But for somebody else, it might look like something completely different, or they might not be able to understand what it's really trying to say. And so these are the main things I would like you, if you're being the person who's doing the critique, who's critiquing the work, I would like you to think about these various things. So there is, first of all, does it fit with the requirements for the assignment? Does it work for what I'm asking you to do? Have you done 15 symbols? Are they arranged properly on the page? There's that kind of thing. Then there's also, are they legible? Do I understand what that symbol is supposed to represent, or at least do I have an idea of what it's supposed to represent? The other thing I want you to critique it is, do the whole set of symbols feel like they belong together as a set? Do they feel like they all feel like they're part of the same group? And in keeping with that, do they all have a similar visual weight? So there isn't one, like if I squint at the room, there isn't one that stands out as being much darker or stronger or bolder than another one. And then you can also critique them based off of, if you break down the elements and principles of design. So I don't know how many of you have studied the elements and principles of design, but in simple terms, the elements of design are these. So it varies a little bit on where you read the list, but basically it's line, shape, color, texture, value, and form, or sometimes it's referred to as format. So the line, in this case, you're judging the line quality. Does the line quality feel consistent throughout? So it's easier when you break it down into those elements. You think about the shape. Some shapes are friendly. Some shapes are aggressive. You know, like a jagged shape is kind of aggressive, whereas a rounded shape, bubbly shapes tend to be friendly. So in these symbols, as they all should have the same sort of feel. Like if one of them feels kind of bubbly, another one feels very sharp, you could critique it based on that. And the word critique, I think in some ways is unfortunate because it sounds so much like criticism, and people don't have a negative idea of criticism. Obviously it's the root word of it, it's part of that word. But the thing with criticism is that it is constructive. What you're trying to explain to somebody is how they could improve it. And also when you're receiving criticism, you need to put your ego to one side. It's easier said than done, I realize, but you have to kind of step aside from it and accept what people are saying. And you can also accept the fact that they might be wrong, including me, by the way, that whoever's critiquing your work, it's their opinion, and you don't have to accept it. But you should at least listen to it so that you can make an informed and objective decision, but not like a knee-jerk reaction. I sometimes get students where no matter what you say about the project, there's a knee-jerk reaction to defend their position. And sometimes, you know, you as part of being a designer, you do need to be able to defend your position, but you need to do it kind of unemotionally. Set your emotions aside and do it. Think about it logically. Is the person saying something which has some valid meaning, or is it just criticism? If it's just criticism, let it go. If it has some valid reason and it could improve the project, why not take that on board? So that's the most important thing I would want you to understand, is when you're doing the critique is to like not be offended if somebody critiques your work. They're not criticizing you. They're looking at something and they're casting their opinion about what they're seeing. So just take that. You can accept it or dismiss it, but just accept it. You can take that piece of advice into life as well. When somebody criticizes you, it might be that they're wrong, but it might be worth listening to them anyway, because even idiots sometimes have, they might be right about something. You know? All right, so I'm going to choose somebody to do each of the critiques. So anybody that's hanging around is going to get a chance to critique this. Melissa, can I have you do the critique for this one? And then after Melissa's critiqued it, anybody can chime in and give your opinion, okay?
Okay, well, right off the bat, I see a lot of consistency with the line weight. Most of them feel like they're consistent. There's a couple that I'm not real clear what they are. But as far as, well, okay, let me just go back. The line weight and the shapes that you're using, the simplicity of your design and how you're approaching it, it all looks pretty consistent.
There's a couple of them that are slightly different, isn't there?
There's a couple that stand out to me. The top middle one.
The sushi.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is.
I think it's sushi, right, Amy?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure. Like maybe it was a headband or.
What do you think she could do to make it more obvious that it was sushi? Maybe put it on a plate.
Maybe put on a plate. Yeah. The size of it feels a little small too compared to the others.
It's also one of the only ones that has a solid black, isn't it? Like the two at the bottom as well, like the turntable, right. I guess it is, and the drink.
Yeah.
They both have a solid black fill, whereas everything else is purely stroke, right? That's the thing that stood out to me as being quite different about those two. Is that what you were noticing when you said that there was like a couple that seemed to stand out to you?
Yes and no. I don't know. For some reason, the sushi one bothers me more than the other two. I think if it was a larger family, you might have some that are darker. But in this case, everything else feels very light, so they do stand out more.
Which was the other ones that you said you couldn't tell which they were, what they were?
Just below the sushi. I'm not really sure.
It looks like baking to me, like a rolling pin with pastry.
Oh, okay. So now I see. Yeah, I see it. Maybe, is that what it is?
Is that right?
I thought it was. Yeah.
Maybe.
It's supposed to be like, yeah, rolling out dough, baking.
I think what kind of threw me was it almost looks like a mirrored image on the top and the bottom. So maybe if it weren't exactly the same. Because now I totally see the rolling pin, but I still think that what you're rolling out.
Who else was able to see that as baking? Is there anybody else that had a hard time understanding that one?
I understood it like pretty instantly because when you roll out dough, you get those weird lumps.
Yeah, I thought that one was fairly clear actually. I can understand how the sushi one would be a bit tricky. Is there any other ones that people find difficult to understand?
Yeah, the sushi, I had no clue.
Mhm.
Okay.
I think it might be a computer in the bottom corner. It's sort of clear, but I think if there were like some keys or something, because it could also be like a TV or like some posters on a wall. It's not 100% sure it's like a computer. That
Okay.
can be the most.
Does anybody else have a hard time with that one? Because I thought that one was actually pretty clear, but maybe.
Well, I find it clear, but I think it's a little bit something more underneath it, like wanting to have a keyboard or something. The one that I don't know, I don't know what it is the one under the moon.
Oh, okay.
Nighttime?
Incense, is it? Amy?
Yeah, it's incense, like aromatherapy.
Yeah. All right, does anybody else have comments? I'm just going to finish up there, Amy. So, Amy, on yours, I would look at the size of some of them. So the incense and the cat and the sushi seem smaller than some of the others. So when you represent them, try to get them more to be the same size. And then the other thing I would try to do is the ones that have the black fill, try to get rid of the black fill on all of those, because all the other ones are just a stroke. And I feel like those three really stand out as being distinctly different from the other ones. But overall, I really like them. I think that they've got a nice kind of friendly quality about them. They have a sort of loose roundness, but they're also very clear and easy to understand for the most part. I know there was a couple of people who found some of them difficult to read, but for me, I thought for the most part they were pretty understandable. Okay, does anybody else have a final comment before we go on to the next person?
I wanted to ask about the glass with the ice and the black. Actually, that's a question for you, Professor.
Okay.
Whether if she reduced the amount of volume in the glass, like have the glass half full with the ice underneath, it'll have less black.
Yeah, I mean, you could do stuff like that, but the other thing, I just think that none of the other symbols, except for those three, have any solid black. It's all just stroke. So I feel like if you're going to have some solid black, I think all of them should have solid black, which is another option to do, is that you could, like, for instance, on the incense, maybe the incense itself, where it's inside the bottle, is filled with black. Maybe on the rolling pin that the handles are black. That you could incorporate, like on the cactus, the stripe that's wiggling across could be a solid shape inside of there. I think that it would want to be that they all have a little bit of solid.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Are you good, Amy?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Who wants to present next? Your thumbnails are great, by the way, Amy. They're really nice. Melissa, do you want to present yours?
I have to I can show you what I have. I don't have it quite the way.
Okay.
But it's not done.
You want to share your screen? Or do you want to be in one of the later critiques?
Well, I did sign up later, but
okay.
If there's other people already signed up now, you can go first.
Okay.
Either way, I'm fine either way.
All right. Well, I'll have you present it then.
Okay.
Share your screen. I'm going to stop sharing.
Great. Okay. I'm going to have to pull it up here. Okay. And I have something on my. I have something on my screen right now that I can't get rid of. You'll see when it comes up. Can you see my screen?
No, not yet.
No?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. I can't get rid of that. I don't know how it got there.
Shift Command I.
Command what?
Shift Command I. Are you on a Mac or a PC?
Mac. Is it because it's not selected or
No, it should be just Shift Command I.
Shift Command I? Aha. Okay.
And
Okay.
then to hide the guides, it's Command semicolon.
All right.
All right.
So, I mean, you know what I was trying to do, but I
Yeah,
guess
yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't. And
So, actually, before you start, I just want to explain to the class. So I had met with Melissa yesterday, right?
or yeah.
And we'd sort of talked about it. And she'd said that she wanted to do something where it has a kind of more freehand sort of feel, right? So I'll let you go from there.
Do you have my thumbnails up there, or should I bring them up?
I have them, but if you have them available, you can share them for me.
Maybe.
Do you have the template underneath?
You know, I not on here, but let's see. I'm having problems with my template disappearing.
So go to your layers.
So here's my layers, and I don't know where it goes.
I don't see your layers actually for some reason.
You can't.
Oh yeah, there it is. Okay. So yeah, your template's visible. Double click on it for a second.
I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I
You
tried.
have all of these are template layers.
Well, at one point,
the way that you know it's a template layer is that it has that rectangle instead of the eye at the beginning of the layer. So all of these are template layers right now, where they probably don't need to be.
At one point, I started bringing in individual drawings, like from my my main page, just individuals. So, but I don't know where they're going.
So it might be that when you're bringing them in, you're doing image trace, right?
Yeah.
So when you bring it in and you image trace it, it then converts it from a photographic image. So you are losing that template unless you made a duplicate. It's converting it then into a vector, right? Which is what you're ending up with. So if you go back to the original template, do you have the original photo on your hard drive somewhere that you can move?
Yeah, I do. I just have to find it. Right.
So while you're looking for that, let me explain something else to the class. So what I had suggested to Melissa was that for this assignment, because she wanted it to have kind of like a hand-drawn quality to it, was that she could take the rough thumbnail sketches that she'd done and place them into Illustrator and then do a thing called image trace, which converts the sketch into a vector. And then you could adjust those sketches. So it automatically traces it, basically. But it may not trace it exactly how you want, so then you can go in and you can modify the path. So we looked at various tools for modifying the path, like the pencil tool and the smooth tool and so on.
Yeah, this like right here was my inspiration. And I
the ice cream kind of.
No, the climber, the bouldering one in the, can you see me?
Yeah, it looks like you're pointing at the ice cream.
Oh, you can't see my thumbnails?
No. Where are your thumbnails?
They're on my screen.
Really? I'm looking at the climber still.
Okay. Well, I just pulled up my...
Stop sharing again. And then reshare. When you share, make sure that you choose desktop. Because otherwise you'll be stuck in whatever screen you're in. If you choose desktop,
okay, I see.
Flip backwards and forwards between different software. Yeah, now I can see it. Okay. So go on. Which way you're pointing at?
Right here.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I was hoping just have a more fluid, organic look to everything. And
you feel like you're accomplishing that right now?
I don't feel like I'm accomplishing it at all. But I don't know. Well, so I learned and discovered all kinds of great things after talking to you and messed around with brushes and tried all kinds of different things, which aren't up here right now. But it just starts to look a little, I feel like it almost looks like a torn paper, or it's just kind of muddied. It's not, it doesn't kind of have.
You still want it to be clean.
Yes, exactly.
You want it to have an elegance to it. You just want it to also have more of a kind of flowing. Can I share my screen for a second? And
sure. I should stop.
Yeah, I think I'll automatically stop.
So yeah, I definitely found myself getting more into sort of, it almost looked like child's drawing or rough kind of torn paper look, or it.
I think what you should do is maybe focus more on the idea of a flowing path. So if you're using the pen tool, for instance, let's say you were drawing let's say I was drawing, I don't know, some flowers in a pot, okay? So if I was to draw the overall shape as a simple line drawing, you know? So I'm going to draw half the pot because the other half of the pot is the same. So we can reflect it, right? And then if you want to join two shapes together, here there's two anchor points that meet each other. So if I do Command J, that will join them. You can also join them by using this tool, which is hidden with the pencil tool called the Join tool. So if you select the 2 points, in this case, they're kind of away from each other. So if you select 2 points which are touching, or there's a little distance, and you select them both, and then you do that over the top with the Join tool, it'll join them together. Then if you were to apply a brush, so this is one of the things that we looked at, is if you go into Window and then go to Brushes and open up the Brushes panel. I was actually going to demonstrate this in today's class, so I'm glad I didn't, because now we get to go over it anyway. So if we choose an artistic brush, for instance, under artistic, this is in the library section, the bottom left-hand corner of the brushes panel. If I go into artistic, we have things like paintbrush, and then you can choose a particular brush, right? So something like that. But you can also create brushes yourself. So for instance, if you were to draw a shape, like maybe I draw a shape like this. I can make this into a brush by simply dragging it into the brushes panel. So I find my brushes panel. This is not the brushes panel. So this is the library from the brushes, but it actually has to go into the actual brushes panel. So my brushes panel is over here. I could drag this into here. And then for this type of thing, I would choose Art Brush. We'll get into more detail about the brushes later on, but there are 5 different types of brushes. Art Brush, what it does is it takes whatever graphic you're putting in there, and then it stretches it along the path. So if I press OK, and then press OK again. Now if I select this, and then choose that, now it's applying that shape. Sorry, it's applying that stroke to this shape. So this is my suggestion. I'm not sure if this is quite, I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're looking for, but I think what you're trying to create is you're trying to create something which has a sort of humanistic, drawn quality, but maybe more
that's
like
much closer.
Like an elegant Japanese brushstroke or something, rather than like a sloppy, wriggly line, right?
Right, but then I found myself sometimes doing something kind of like this, but it starts to look too, calligraphy kind of.
Yeah.
No, but this is.
But the other thing you can do is remember. So this has got a fill on it. If I expand it now, the fill will also expand. So bear that in mind, because as it's white, it's kind of hard to tell that there's a shape here, right? That's white. So let's just get rid of that thing. So on this one, this becomes a kind of a complicated shape when you expand it. But if I unite it, see how there's like this weird overlap right here? If I unite it, it gets rid of that. And then I can delete any of these weird little doohickeys, which sometimes get caused by these brushes being expanded. And then you could smooth it out further. So right now it has a lot of anchor points. When you expand an object from a brush, it creates enormous amounts of anchor points, which are difficult to edit. But if you go to Object, Path, Simplify, you can minimize the number of anchor points. So it's going to change the shape slightly, maybe. But you can adjust how much it's simplifying it. And then once you've simplified it like that, it gives you more control over how you edit it. So for instance, there's the pencil tool, which allows you to modify the shape of an object. So if I choose that tool, so if I draw close to the object, you start close and you end close. You can modify the shape, you know, like that. It's not making a new path, it's modifying this existing path. So you've got to make sure that the path is selected when you're doing this, otherwise it's going to create a new path. You can see if I deselect this and I draw, it'll just make a new path. But if it's selected and you're starting close to the object and you're ending close to the object, it'll redraw it. If it's not doing that, it's because Edit Selected Path in the pencil tool is unchecked. And then the width underneath is how many pixels you have to, how close you have to be to the object for it to edit it. So if I went here, I could be further away and it will still edit it. So this is really useful for modifying those shapes. And it will help you, it can help you kind of give it more of a sort of hand-drawn fluid kind of feel to it. You know?
The other challenge, I'm sorry.
Sorry, the other thing that you could maybe do is like with shapes, if you wanted to modify them, is you could try using this tool, which is, the Puppet Warp tool. So with the Puppet Warp tool, you have this mesh across the surface and then you can pull the shape like that. So maybe that's useful for you to create that sort of more fluid kind of shape. Like this here could really, that rectangle could really become more like a fluid path that you use, you know? So these pins hold the shape in one particular place, and then when you move another pin, the other ones are being held in position.
Was that a line that you started with or a rectangle?
It was a rectangle. And then with those shapes where you use that tool on it, afterwards you can expand it again. You know, and it just becomes like a regular shape. So that might be another way for you to modify to create those sort of like smooth flowing kind of shapes that you want.
So a big challenge became, as I added more, was when you're trying to be random, it often becomes, I got so caught up in the little teeny tiny details of making that look random, which actually becomes more complicated.
Yeah.
Sometimes. And then to be able to carry that through all of the other icons exactly became challenging. Like that thing, that shape that you just made, and the way you took the pencil and smoothed out that bottom, that had a certain quality to it, which then I would have to duplicate in each icon, right?
Yeah, kind of. But I think that to a large extent, the quality is, this isn't always true, but it's oftentimes true that the quality to a large extent is dependent on the process. So the way that you create it, if you create it the same way in each symbol, that it will lend itself towards consistency. So there's going to be exceptions to that, obviously, where sometimes you're going to have to do it a little bit differently for it to actually look the same. But usually, like the process that you're using, so for instance, the fact that you're using image trace has a certain quality to it. And then if you manipulate them then by using the pencil tool, like if you did that on all of them, you smooth them out using that simplify points, the pencil tool, you go through a similar sort of process, they'll have a recognizable feel to them, I think.
I almost feel like maybe I need to go back to my my drawings, and because I did that and then I found that they just didn't look the same, some of them.
I mean, the other thought is that you could go back to the sketches and tighten up the sketches.
Yeah.
You image trace them, and then have the actual pencil drawing be pretty close to the type drawing that you want to have. Do you know what I mean?
Kind of what I'm thinking, because as I went through and did the tracing on different ones, they would just look,
because the sketches are different as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You want to share the ones that you've got again? You want to share yours?
I mean, I'm having fun and I'm learning all kinds of things in here that I'm discovering, but it's just becoming more and more complicated, I think.
Yeah.
So this is what I have so far. Oh, am I not sharing that screen now?
Yeah, I'm not saying anything.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so like I found myself reworking this one because it didn't, because of the drawing that I had scanned and what it traced, it just didn't feel the same. And actually, this is my favorite one. I really like that one a lot. And I was trying to carry that quality over to this one because it didn't feel like it had the same quality. And so I just find myself constantly readjusting as I go.
Right.
And taking it back to all the others to carry it through. So it might be better to start with.
I have to say though, one thing I'd say about them is that I think that if you take the skull, the Halloween one, and the movies, and the coffee, and the ice cream, not quite as much, but almost, I think that all of those are working pretty well as a series. Like they feel like they belong to it.
So which one?
Particularly the coffee, the Halloween, and the movies. Those three for me feel like they belong as part of a series, and they have a similar kind of feel. I think the difference with the hiking one is that it would work better if the body and the legs were hollow in the same way that the coffee pot is.
So then does that mean that my other figure should be hollow? Because this guy is not.
So, yeah.
Huh.
I think it would help it.
Take a look at that.
And
so
then the Redwoods one, I think that drawing needs a little bit more work.
Yeah.
That you might want to get a reference from a redwood tree and then do the sketch based off of that and then re-image trace it.
Okay. Yeah, and right now, definitely the figures don't feel like the other ones. So
yeah, the figures is the area where I think it's the most. Those ones stand out the most as being different from all the others. The ice cream, the coffee, the Halloween, and the movies all fit pretty well together. The ice cream, the only thing I would say is that I think that one could be a little bit more refined. But I feel like it fits with it. It just feels like it needs tightening a little bit more.
So do you think I would be better off as I move forward to do what you just demonstrated, or should I keep with the tracing?
I mean, it sounds like you're not particularly happy with these, right? You're not accomplishing what you want to accomplish with them.
No.
So maybe it's worth trying a different approach, you know?
Yeah.
So instead of doing the image trace, maybe try drawing the paths. Like you could use these as a basis. Yeah, use the pictures as a basis. Trace out the shapes, and then try applying the shape of the brush to it. Like it's hard to know whether somebody else can do this in the same way. Like I actually like drawing those paths rather than using a paintbrush. Can I share my screen for a second?
Sure.
Let's see if I have this one on here. I think the example I was going to show you actually is on my other computer, maybe. I have it on. I have it on Facebook. One second.
Hey, Professor, this is your interpreter here.
Yeah, hi.
I'm going to go ahead and take off. The student still hasn't shown up.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
See you next week. Thank you.
Okay, bye. Sorry, it's taking a little while to load. Give me a second. All right, let me share my screen. I actually did this for the class, but I haven't really quite figured out where to put it on the class. But you see these shapes here? Like those could be done with a brush. Like I could draw a single path and then I could make a brush that sort of fits that shape. But I think it's kind of easier, for me anyway, I find it easier to control it, or I have more control over it, if I draw the shape. So what I mean by that is like this. If I go back into Illustrator for a second. So let's say with your ice cream, if I draw the shape of the ice cream scoop, or the, whatever you call it, the actual ice cream itself, it's just a shape. You know? And then, you know, like here, there's a little bit of a bump. When I was drawing it, I didn't quite get that bit right. So I could use the smooth tool and smooth that out. And then on the inside of here, I could draw another shape. So my thicks and thins are not being created by a brush as such. They're being created by me drawing out where the thicks and thins would be.
Mm-hmm.
This would then become, in essence, the stroke. You know, and within here, you could even add like additional detail, you know, so for instance, here, I could add a point, add another point, bring this in, have this curve back on itself, so that it has like a little bit of a curve here, and then pull this handle around like that. Then if I select all of that and do Command 8 and make it into a fill, that's actually the stroke, you know, like at least that's the way it appears, you know? But it's really a shape that you're drawing.
Yeah.
And I think, to be honest with you, if I was trying to do what I think that you're trying to do, I think that this is probably the way I would probably go, is to like draw out the shapes. It might help you though to draw it out by hand first. Another suggestion is when you're drawing it by hand is if you were to draw it with like a Sharpie marker or something like that, where you've got a really solid blank, so you could sketch it out with pencil, fill it with a Sharpie marker, and then you know, think of that shape as a solid thing. So here, if I then select these and do Command,
right? You make it look so easy.
Yeah, I realize that process is tricky because it's reliant on you being effective with the pen tool, you know. So I don't know how good you are with the pen tool, but it would be a great exercise for you to try. But you could, like I said, if you did it with a Sharpie marker, you'd actually end up with something that was fairly similar to this by using image trace.
So,
because you wouldn't have that, like one of the things that you get is you get this roughness when you image trace it.
yeah.
You know, some of that is because you're using pencil on paper, so it picks up the texture.
Okay.
And then it turns that texture into kind of like a roughness, you know. But whereas if you did it as a Sharpie marker, where it's like a really solid black, then when you image trace it, you should end up with like a fairly solid version of the finished thing.
Yeah. I think that might be a good place to start, to go back to, is just refine all of my drawings and go from there. Yeah.
All right. So does anybody else have comments about Melissa's work before we go on? I didn't really have anybody critique yours, did I? Sort of critique.
I like her natural style, the way she wants to do it, like hand draw. I think that's a beautiful idea, and the way you were showing it, that can come out so nice. I really like that. Like your coffee,
not very impersonal
and things like that. Beautiful.
All right. Who else wants to present now?
Thank you.
Rosemary, have you got your project ready? Oh, that's Elias, you're ready to present, right? Do you want to share your screen, or shall I show it from my side, Elias? Okay, so when we're doing the critique, Elias doesn't have a microphone, so he's not going to be able to present. But you can say whatever you want in the chat, Elias, and then we can all read it. And then if anybody wants to comment, you can comment in the chat if you want, or you can just speak to Elias and make suggestions. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen and then find his project and show you what we've got. So can you all see that okay? I'm going to figure out how I see chat whilst I'm sharing my screen. I'm not sure if there's a way I can do it. I'm not sure I can see the chat whilst I'm sharing my screen. I'll have to do some research into that. But in the meantime, so these are Elias's symbols. I'm going to have Hannah. Do you want to do the critique for this one?
Sure.
So remember that these are the main things I want you to think about. Do they all work together as a series? Do they have a similar kind of visual weight? Are they legible? Can you understand what they mean? Those are the main things. And then think about the negative, positive space, line quality, shapes, what they mean, and so on. Okay.
Okay. I do think that they all kind of go together. They have the same line length, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they all kind of are good relative to size. Like none of them are really out of proportion from the next icon over. They all kind of like go together that way. And then the few things, some of these I can't really tell exactly what they are. I know that the first one's like a football thing, but the second one, I right next to it, on the
Yeah,
right.
I have no idea what the second one is.
I'm not sure. It could be like
Elias, can you stay in the chat and we'll just get out of here for a second?
turbo for a
Turbo
car.
for a car. Okay.
Oh, okay. Turbocharger.
So, is it really that you're into cars or that you're really into turbochargers? Elias, is it that you're really into cars in general, or is it that you're really into turbocharged cars? You like cars with turbos? I agree. That one's a hard one to understand. I didn't know what that one was either. And I think that it's one of those things where probably if you're really into turbochargers, you may understand it, but otherwise you wouldn't get it. One of the things with symbols is that with certain symbols, they're recognizable within a certain group, and that's kind of okay. Or they're things which are not really recognizable, but we learn to recognize them over time because they're used consistently. With that one, I don't know. It's a bit of an odd one, that one. You might have to rethink that one.
Do you want me to keep going or?
Sure, yeah. Do you have any other comments?
Oh, also there's like a turtle, I think, on the bottom, but I'm not sure if that's a turtle, but I think it is. I don't know, maybe if it's not very clear. Okay, I like turtles, so that's cool. Let's see. There's the basketball, which I think could use less detail.
Okay.
And
what do you think the one is underneath the basketball?
I think that's a wrestling thing, but I don't know because maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's a wrestling belt.
Is that what it is, Elias?
Boxing belt.
Boxing belt, okay. All right.
But maybe instead of the belt, maybe you could put boxing gloves or something that's more recognizable to people who are not necessarily interested in those topics, but can understand what they are.
Once you pointed it out, I did recognize it, but I think that there needs to be something else. There's something about it that isn't quite recognizable, and I'm not sure what it is. But yeah, it might need to be something else. I think the belt could be, because the belt is such a significant thing in boxing. If you could make it so that it was more recognizable, specific to boxing as well, I think it would work. Yeah. My other comments, do you have more comments, Helen?
Oh no, I'm good. We're good. Yeah.
The only comments I had is, I think when you present them, it would be better if they all had a little bit more space around them, so they could all be slightly smaller. And then the other thing I would suggest is that if you look at like the donut, for instance, has a different line weight than say I don't know what the one underneath is. It a bowling ball, or what is the one underneath the donut? Hey, Michelle, how do you see chat whilst you're sharing the screen?
You can go to the participants. Oh, here, click on that.
More.
And open the top one.
Yeah. I can now see the chat. Moon, I struggle with Kratos. Okay. Okay. So maybe with the moon, maybe it would represent it better. Is it specifically full moons that you like, Elias? Or is it the moon in general? Because maybe if it was maybe a part of a moon, it would be easier to understand. That's one suggestion I have. I would look at the line quality and keep them all. So I would stack so that they all have, say, that everything's 3-point stroke, and then maybe the secondary weight is a 2-point stroke. So like on the computer or the TV screen, I think it's a computer screen, where it has the thick stroke on the outside and the thin stroke on the inside. I think if you're going to do that, you should do that with all of them. So on the donut, the sprinkles could be in the lighter weight. And then maybe on the one which is the keyboard, you've already got that one. You've got the lighter weight for the inside elements. Maybe on the on the soccer pitch, so that it has the markings on the pitch are at a lighter weight, but they're consistently the same throughout. Otherwise, I think they look pretty good. I think for the most part, they're fairly understandable. There's just a couple that are difficult to figure out. All right. Does anybody else have comments before we move on?
It seems like some of the circles are different sizes.
Yeah, I
Like
think
the
I mentioned that. Some of the symbols, like the donut, is a different size from the.
Like I want to see all the circles be the same size.
Yeah, I think all the symbols should be relatively the same size, and anything which is a circle should really be the same. Yeah. That's a good point. Does anybody else have comments? All right, very good. So, who wants to present next? I think we're just forgetting about the groups at this point. Anybody that wants to present?
I'll go.
Rosemary?
Yeah, or whoever else was talking.
Okay. Rosemary, you want to present now?
Sure.
Do you want me to share it from my screen, or are you going to share it on yours?
I submitted it, so you could probably just do it from yours.
Okay, fair enough.
Did it not work?
I only see the thumbnails.
Whoops. I created a PDF in Acrobat. I might have just.
Let me try downloading it.
I could always just share it from my screen. It's not a big deal.
Okay. Let me just open it. So. Yeah, this one's only got the thumbnails in it.
Okay. Here, let me share mine. Okay. You guys see that?
Yeah.
I went with a round man theme.
You did. I like it. Okay, so let me see. Who's got? Who wants to do the critique for this one? Does anyone want to volunteer? Who hasn't done one yet? Dubravka, do you want to do the critique for this one?
Sure.
You go by Dubravka, not Maria, right?
Yeah, whatever is easy.
Okay. Oh, now it seems like you're stalling or something.
Okay, I think this is pretty cute, different activities. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty uniform. It's a family of figures. You see that one is dancing, the other one is hiking, one is singing, sleeping, doing some exercise or yoga, kayaking, very sad and crying, trying to make friendship, listening to music, painting, playing ping pong or tennis, playing guitar, gardening, Christmas decorations, and skiing. Beautiful.
Yeah, pretty easy to understand.
Yeah. So in terms of, I think they're all balanced out, same size, other than maybe the sleeping one.
Yeah, I need to fix the weight of the stroke to match the painting one, and I maybe make the entire bed like dark and have the pillows be light.
Maybe not dark, but maybe, I don't know if you need the whole bed, but I don't know if you need the whole bed. And also he has the eyes open, so that's what's a little confusing.
Oh, it's the only one with the eyes open, actually.
Oops.
So I like them all. I think they're adorable.
Thanks.
And I like especially the one dancing, completely apart with all the sides. So that's very cute.
Yeah, thank you.
And the one doing the painting, yeah, maybe make the brush a little bigger.
Yeah, maybe so you can see the idea better.
Okay.
The other thing I would say is that maybe on the bed the stroke could be a little thicker, kind of like on the legs on the easel.
Yeah.
Or even like the way that you have like the skis on the skier. I feel like with a lot of the thin weights, like on the musical notes and on the bed, that the weight is a little too thin for a cymbal.
Okay.
That they would sort of get lost at small sizes.
I don't know. I actually disagree with that comment.
Yeah.
I think that the legs, if the legs are thicker, then they'll be too confused with the own legs of the figure.
You mean
I
the
think
legs
the legs are only, maybe make a third leg.
No, I meant actually what I was saying is that the line thickness on the bed is
the bed
thinner than on the
the bed
easel, and I think that the thickness on the easel is better because it fits. It would make the bed more. The bed almost disappears.
Yeah, no.
I think that's what makes it feel like it's so much less than the others.
Yeah, and maybe make the pillow bigger. I mean, so that the whole head is on the pillow. Because if there weren't the Z's, it wouldn't be 100% sure what's going on. Is he coming out of a box or something?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
That's all. I think. And I would make the backpack a little bigger.
Okay.
The other comment I have is that this is just a thought, really, but maybe on the one where he's playing the guitar, that the body of the guitar, rather than it being a thin white stroke, that it just becomes a negative white space. And then the hole in the guitar stays black, but the body is just sort of like a white shape out of the body of the human. You know what I mean?
Okay, I like that idea.
That's a great idea.
But it looks really good. I like them a lot. They look like a very consistent set of things.
I have a little comment.
Yeah, sure.
The kayak one, I feel like I want to see the kayak have the same quality as the other secondary objects like the bed.
Oh, yeah. That's a good
Oh,
point.
okay.
You know what? There was something about the kayak one that was bothering me, and I couldn't quite. I think
It's not symmetrical.
Yeah, exactly. And it almost.
The other thing for me is that it looks like because those are solid, whereas the other secondary objects aren't.
Yeah.
It starts to look like those are his legs, so it looks
exactly.
like
He's in a yoga pose or something. And where you're holding the oars and the negative space between the arms and the head, it's like I want to see the oar either in the middle of the head or not. It's not either.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like an awkward, like it's almost at the neck.
Yeah, it's just sort of a weird little tangent point almost at the bottom of the head.
I might give it a little more tilt.
It just feels a little awkward right now. I think just a little something could help it.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna tilt it up so he's like dipping it in the water. I think that would look better.
Yeah. It's fun.
Thanks.
I think that's it. Okay, does anybody else have suggestions? There's a chat. Yeah, let me see what the chat says. Hannah said you could just make it thicker. Thicker line on the bed, like the kind of, that was you'd mentioned that anyway.
Yeah.
Who else needs to present? Is there anybody else that needs to present right now?
Yeah, I was gonna ask if I could.
Okay, is this Hannah? Have you uploaded yours, Hannah?
Yeah, I did. I just re-uploaded it again right now.
Okay. Okay, so this is Hannah's symbols.
I re-uploaded it to make it like
This is an older
so
one.
they're all in the right format. I don't know. Might be the older one, but
we try refreshing the page.
okay, there we go.
That's it. Oh.
Yeah, I didn't know they had to be like straight lines and together, organized.
Oh yeah. Okay. So, is there anything you want to say about them before we critique it? Do you feel like you're finished with them, or are you still working on them?
I thought I was finished, but I wasn't sure how to really, with what I have, like some things I wanted to change, but I wasn't sure how to change them, so I just left them.
So, like, give me an example. Which one would you like to change, but you're not sure how?
The frog and the bear, I don't think they match that well.
They don't match each other, or they don't match the rest of the set?
Like the rest of them, I feel like, especially the frog and like the bear, like the arm, something's wrong. I don't know. I just didn't know what to do. I just left it.
Okay. I'm going to download it, and then I'm going to show you a couple of things.
Just a question. Once we've done ours, can we head out?
Yeah, if you've already done the critique, you can leave if you want to. Yeah.
Wait, thank you.
Bye, Rosemary.
Oh, so was it a JPEG that you uploaded?
No, it was a PFG, PNG. No. The PDF.
Well, it's a PDF, but when I open it, I can't edit anything. So it seems like it's it's not a vector file. You know?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to save from the Illustrator like to a PDF, so I've just been going on the internet and saying like JPEG to PDF, and then
So what did
converting
you
it.
do? So to make it into a PDF from Illustrator, you can just do Save As, and then you can choose Adobe PDF here.
Huh.
Okay. Can you
Okay.
can you resave it real quick? Because I want to edit something on it, and I can't edit it the way it is now. You have the file open.
Yeah, I'll save it right now.
Okay. You know when it's uploaded.
Okay.
One of the things, whilst you're doing that, let me just say a couple of things. So one of them is that going back to that idea of them having the same visual weight. So one of the things about the bear and the frog is that they're both solid black with that white stroke around the object. Whereas if you look at, like, say, the game controller or the sheep or the tree or the UFO, all of those elements are a white fell with a black stroke around them, and then they have another element which is black solid. The swimmer is all solid black with a line. So that one sort of fits with like the UFO, but I feel like when you get to those ones that are just all solid black, then it doesn't really seem like they fit as well. So I think they either all have to go so they're all solid black, or they all have to go so that they're using a stroke. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like level them out a little bit better.
Yeah. So like if you squint at them right now, there's certain symbols which really stand out as being, really solid and black, and then other ones which sort of almost disappear. So you want to have them have the same kind of level of intensity or visual weight.
Okay. Just gotta. I sent it to you. I resent it in the.
Sure you uploaded it.
I uploaded it.
Okay. Okay. So, like, for instance, on this one, these ones could have. Are you seeing my screen right now?
Nope.
I don't have an answer for that. Is there something else I can help with?
Go away, Siri. All right. So, like, for instance, on this one, maybe one of these, if we're going to have, like this one has some elements of black, this one has some elements of black. So maybe on this one, you use the eyedropper and you use the same setting for one of the hearts as that tone with black stroke. And then maybe on the bear, you could do the same thing. You know, you could have part of it be a white body, or maybe it's just the ears that are black, or maybe there's a black shape inside here and the eyes are black or something. You know? But that way, visually, they have the same kind of level of weight to them. You know? And then there was something I was going to show you, which is why I asked you, and I can't remember what it was now. Oh, it was on the bear's arms. You were saying that you didn't feel like the bear's arms fit, right? There was something weird about them?
Yeah, I think maybe because they're connected to the body, and then like all the humans, like their arms are not connected to their body or something. I don't know. Or maybe because he's just so round.
The other thing I was going to say is that you could use like envelope, distort, make with warp, and you could bend them a little bit.
Oh.
So like if you did this kind of thing to it. Or if you did it where it's straight, it would actually have more control over it. So if you go straight first, and then do it. And then if you rotate it from the shoulder by clicking on the shoulder joint, and you can rotate it from there. So maybe that wasn't what was worrying you about it, but I just thought that maybe that would make it feel like, obviously these would want to be the same as each other. Maybe that would make it feel more like it was an arm rather than just something like a rectangle stuck on the side of it.
Mm-hmm. I like what you did with the hearts a lot. That really fixed that.
Frog. One of the things that's weird to me on the frog is I feel like it should have eyes. So whether those are there or they're in front of the face, or maybe there's a pupil in them. The bear doesn't have eyes either, huh?
No, none of the characters have eyes. That's why I didn't put eyes on them.
Did you do that on purpose? Like it's like part of the idea of it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just figured because none of them had eyes and they only had mouths, except for the
cow has eyes.
The cow has eyes. Oh, I'm stupid.
Yeah, I suppose that the human figures are quite different from these two as well, aren't they? That's the other thing, I suppose. So how you resolve that? Maybe it's somewhere in between that two. I think you're pretty close. It's just really a matter of kind of refining them so they feel like they work together as a set more than anything else. I think that would be my overall suggestion. Okay?
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, that does help. Thank you.
Does anybody else have suggestions? All right, very good. So, Dubravka, do you want to present yours?
Okay, so I'm just trying to, well.
Do you want to share your screen, or did you upload them already?
Outline, but I have the drawings, and I'm battling because it opened in Photoshop and I can't get it out of Photoshop.
Uh-huh.
So how do we do that?
Do you want to show me your screen? You want to share your screen with me?
Yeah, sure. Hold on. Okay, I'm using here a couple of different. Okay, share screen, desktop, share. Okay, so I just downloaded it. Where the hell is it? Here. Oops. Okay, open in the other screen. So 1 second.
I can see it.
You can see it?
Yeah.
But why can't I move it? I can't move it to the other screen. It's not letting me do that. Oh, okay. 1 second. I can't turn it around.
Which format is it in right now?
It's just an image. I took the image with my phone.
Okay, and I can't see it right now. So when you took it out of that other screen, I can't
Oh,
no longer see it.
okay. Well, let me then share.
So if you to turn it around, you're going to need to download it from the browser.
I did download it, and then when I opened it, it only opened in Photoshop.
Okay, so when you go to open it, you're on a Mac, right? Yeah. So go to the actual file on your hard drive.
Okay, and so it's in downloads. Do you see the screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's here, this one.
Okay. So when you click on it, click on it. Hold the control key.
Okay.
Click on it.
Open with?
Open with, and then open with Illustrator 2020.
Screen. I guess it's too white.
It's
oh, here you are. What just happened?
It's opening right now. It's taking a while.
And now I have to turn it around.
Okay, so let's zoom out, Command minus, and then select it, choose the black arrow, the very first tool in the tool panel, the black arrow, and then put your cursor just outside the corner so that it becomes the rotate tool, and rotate it through 180 degrees. Yeah, there you go. And then I think you stretched it then. You don't want to stretch.
Yeah, it's okay. Oops, what just go? Okay.
So we don't really want to make it bigger because we've zoomed out a lot. So you can Command Z to undo all the scaling bigger. We actually want to scale it smaller so that it fits on the artboard.
Oh, it just now.
You see how big the artboard is? So we want to scale it to fit on the artboard. Although I don't know how big your artboard is. Go to the artboard tool on the left-hand side. It's near the bottom. It's the one just above the hand tool. Yeah, click on that. So the size of your artboard right now is 288 points.
Oh, that's so small. I should put in inches, right?
Yeah, at the top where it says custom, click on it says custom and change it to letter size. Okay, press OK. Okay. And then scale your sketches to fit onto that. So choose the selection tool again, the black arrow.
Shouldn't I make it, I'm not very clear what you...
So we just made the artboard a standard kind of letter size.
Right.
And now we're going to scale the photograph of the thumbnails to fit onto it. So if you use the selection tool, you can put your cursor in the top corner. And then when you scale it, it's better to scale it from the corner holding shift so you keep the same proportions. You understand what I mean? I think you might have frozen. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so as you scale it, if you hold shift, it'll constrain the proportions, Dubravka.
So I am doing that.
Yeah, ready?
I am scaling it.
Okay.
Just also having a problem with the two screens.
Oh, okay. It also seems to be lagging a little bit.
Isn't this a little small?
Well, you can zoom in now. You can do Command 0 and fit in window. So that's
And
how, that's, you know, remember that the view is not the size of it. So this is the size of the document. If you zoom out now, Command minus.
I should have probably did it. I should have probably done it portrait, not portrait size, but landscape.
Okay, you want to make it landscape? So let's choose the artboard tool again. And then at the top there, you see those two icons next to where it says letter. So the first thing on that bar is letter. That's the size. Next to it, there we go. Now,
and now where did the thing go?
So we need to zoom out a little bit now. Command minus. Stay in Illustrator. Do Command minus. Oh, I think you placed it again, maybe. Command 0. I mean, Command Z.
I don't understand what's going on.
Do Command Z a couple of times.
I did it a bunch of times. And now it's still.
Yeah, let me take control of your screen for a second.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the artboard right here. And at the top, we've lost the control bar for some reason. So let's sort that out. It always goes very slow when I'm sharing your screen, so bear with me because it starts lagging really badly. Like I do something and I have to wait for it to happen. It might be just too slow to even work with, actually. This isn't working, above. It's too slow. I can't do it. I'll have to meet with you afterwards. Can we meet individually and I'll try to help you with that?
Sure.
Because I think it's taking too long for the whole class. We're gonna lose everybody. Actually, it looks like everyone's gone anyway. It looks like most people have gone anyway.
Yeah, I think everybody presented.
Yeah, I think everybody presented. Everyone that showed up presented, yeah. All right. So let me have another go. I know what you could do. Can you email me the file of the image? And then I'll show you from my side, because that way it'll go faster.
Okay. So let me go there. Okay, what is your email?
It's John Measures, Jon. JONMEASURES 65 at gmail.com.
When altogether measures MEASURES.
Yeah, you were
right?
breaking up, but yeah, JONMEASURES 65 at
Got
gmail.com.
it.
Okay.
All right. Are we still sharing screens?
No, not right now. I'm just waiting for the file to come through, and then I'll share my screen with you.
Okay.
Did you send it already?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
It's loading for some. I think the internet stuff is not. Yeah, it went. It
Wait
should
one
be.
second. Yeah, I got it.
You got it?
Yeah. Okay, let me share my screen. So basically, we have an image, and we need to get it into Illustrator so that we can use it. First of all, you don't necessarily have to use the sketches in Illustrator. Like, you could just look at them next to you if you wanted to. But if you want to use them as a template, we'd want to get them into Illustrator. So we can actually just open the file in Illustrator as a way to get it in. So that's what we were doing just now, but I was having a hard time controlling your screen. So if you look at it, this is the artboard right here. Now, I'm not sure what size it's making my artboard. It's making mine 11 by 17 because that was the last size that I made. That's why it's making that size. But let's say I wanted it to be letter size. Now, actually, for the symbols project, we do want it to be 11 by 17. So let's leave it at that. So this is an 11 by 17 artboard. If I want to get the symbol sketches to be that size and to rotate them, if I select them with the selection tool, and then I put my cursor just outside, I can rotate them like this, right? Once I've got them to the right angle, I can then put my cursor just over the corner and then drag in. And if I hold Shift and Option, Shift is constraining it, so it keeps the same proportions. And then Option is scaling it to the center.
I see.
Now I can do Command 0 to fit in window. So one thing, I'm not sure if this is true, but it seemed like you were sort of confusing when I'm zoomed out, the thing itself is small. When I'm zoomed in, that it's big, where it's really just to do with the way you're viewing it, right?
Oh, I was confusing it.
Yeah, so the thing itself is a particular size. Like if I was to open this in Photoshop, actually, it would be easier to tell the size. But this right here, this image, after I've scaled it, is now, and I can draw a rectangle. Now, if I click again, so this is 14.0155 inches by 10.465 inches. That's the actual size of it, right? But if I measure the screen with a ruler, that's not the size it is, because I can zoom in and zoom out. So that's just how I'm looking at the thing in here, right?
I see. So those were my confusions. I was confused about what that is. Yeah.
Okay, now that we've got it in here, what we can do is set this to a template layer if we want to. So we can double click on it, just like in that tracing exercise that I was doing today. Choose template.
Right.
Okay. Now we could go in here, we can go, okay, so let's say I wanted to draw this cake, for instance. One way that I could do that is I could draw an ellipse. I'm going to make a new layer, because this is my template layer. And on this one, I'm going to draw the cake as an ellipse. And a cake is an extruded circle. So if I do another one that's at the bottom, so this is the bottom and this is the top. And then if I draw a rectangle that connects those, so it helps to have smart guides on when you're doing this, Command U or View, smart guides. Then if I go from this anchor point here across to the anchor point on the opposite side on the bottom,
right.
Select over those two, and then unite them. Then I can bring this shape to the front. Now this will give me, obviously this gives me a very kind of mechanical look. So maybe that's not what you're looking for, but this is one approach. And I can then, for all the other elements in here, so here we've got these other rings that go through here. We could use this circle again. So I could hold Option and drag it down. So to there actually. And then I can cut it with the scissors. So if I cut it here and then cut it here, then I can delete the top part, choose the pen tool again, and draw a little bit more on this side and a little bit more on this side. Those lines on the outside are just to make sure that the path is going right the way through the shape. And then the other thing that's important to remember with this technique is that I make sure that the stroke is just a stroke, no fill on it. So that, because I'm going to use this to cut it, if I was to leave it with the fill, even though the fill is white and you can't really see it, it would actually also cut through that where the fill is going, which would be straight across there. Then I can select this and divide it. Then I need to send that to back again. But then this is following that same curve. And we could use that again. And actually before we cut it, if we just went and duplicated this one down to here as well. And we could even go ahead and do these ones. So if I draw with the pen tool or the pencil tool, or whichever tool you want, if you draw this wobbly line for the frosting, the green spelling out, have that go across there. And then one more underneath that. So this I probably wanted to be a different line really, but I'll just reflect it.
And just
so you just get the idea. And then if I select all of that and divide it, so using Pathfinder, if I divide through here and then send it to back again, then you'd have that finished thing. So does that help?
Yeah.
Does that give you an idea of how to approach it? Do you have any questions for me?
Well, not right now. I mean, I was figuring, so do I get to do the selection of all of those myself, or anybody has any idea? Or Melissa, what do you think? Which one do you like? Which ones do you like?
Oh, for choosing which ones to make into the drawings?
Right.
Yeah, let's have a look. You any thoughts, Melissa, on let's start with the trees.
Kind of what you think, I think. I mean, it's what you make of it.
I think
one thing I think with the trees, one thing I think about, Maria, with the trees as a symbol is I think what you're trying to make a symbol for is trees in the plural rather than tree.
Right. Right.
So I'm just wondering whether one option for the symbol is that it could be multiple trees, like maybe 3 that all kind of fit together nicely as a tree.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You know, or that something resembles like a cluster of trees rather than one tree anyway, you know. And then for the butterflies, again, like you're drawing 4 different butterflies, but I think one option is that it could be a single butterfly, or it may be that the symbol is made out of a collection of butterflies somehow. I'm not sure how exactly that would work, but that one might be an idea. I think that I'm not crazy about on the butterflies, the one that I like the best, the one that sort of sticks out to me is the top left-hand corner.
Yeah.
That one seems to has like a little bit of personality to it. I kind of feel like it's flying. Feel like it's moving. The one underneath it looks like he's sort of because you can see the legs. It looks like he's sort of walking. It doesn't seem as dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not exciting.
Yeah, but I like the one above it. It almost seems like he's kind of come to. I can imagine him in a movie where he's sort of hovering.
Yeah,
and I can. Conversation sort of thing. Yeah, like he's standing back and listening.
Yeah.
And I think also the fact that he's sort of almost standing up gives him a kind of human quality to it as well. Just on this. The on the bees, I don't know.
The event, we found a huge bee colony in my break box when the electrician came. So I had to find the whole portion.
Your audio keeps cutting in and out, Maria.
Yeah, and so I'm now left with.
Anna's joined us now. Hi, Anna.
Hello.
So are you in the 330 critique?
Yeah.
So it seemed like what happened was that everybody sort of stayed in the first critique. So I've got two people that are still here. Do you want to present your work and have them critique it?
I could work with this one. Here, let me see. Sorry, my internet is being terrible today, so I'm like barely hearing like half of the stuff everyone's saying.
Oh, really? So I'll try to shout, shall I?
Yeah. So if I have to, if I'm gonna be like, hey, can you repeat that? It's because it's gonna cut out. But
do you want to share your screen, or shall I share the one that you've uploaded?
you can share the one that I uploaded. I don't have it up right now.
Okay, give me a sec.
Can I just ask one thing?
Sure.
First tomorrow, right?
What's that, sorry? What did you say, Maria?
Hours.
You're cutting in and out, so I didn't quite get.
Yeah, my internet. Where do you have office?
Oh, you can set up a one-on-one meeting with me by scheduling it. Just send me a message.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you stay and help me critique Anna's project though, as there's only you and Melissa here?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. All right. Do you want to say anything about them, Anna?
Not really. Just any kind of tips to make them look maybe more simple or helpful, I guess. Something that might make the point come across a little bit easier.
Okay, so when we were doing the other critiques earlier, I'd said that there was a couple of things I want people to sort of focus on. One of them is the fact that all of the symbols should feel like they fit together in terms of style, and then that they have a similar kind of visual weight. And then the other thing is that they should be legible, that you can kind of understand what it means. And so those are the main focuses. The other things were to like think about the elements and principles of design. That were things like negative and positive space, line quality, you know, what's the shape? Is it friendly? Is it aggressive? Those kinds of things. So on this one, Melissa, do you have any suggestions in terms of critiquing it?
Yes. I see a lot of good line weight stuff that is starting there, but you kind of need to reel it in because there are some inconsistencies. I feel like the sunny days shouldn't be in a circle because it's kind of turning into like an emblem or a circle thing, and you're not doing that with your other ones. So you could probably achieve that without the circle because all of your other things aren't like in a shape.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the Disney, maybe. And the Disney one is heavy and the rest are real light. So I feel like it's too dark.
Okay.
What else? Let's see. The decorating one is a little bit tricky. I don't know how you would convey that, but if it didn't say decorating there, I might not know that that's what that's communicating. I don't know how you would do that though.
Yeah.
It might need to, I think that probably part of it is that because they're all such similar shapes, I mean, they're sort of similarly abstract as well. That
Yeah.
when you know what it is, it's obvious. But if you don't know what it is, it's kind of hard to know. It looks like something that's purely abstract. I think if you added one other element, so like, I think you could get away with having just 3 frames instead of 5,
Okay.
and then maybe have one other element like a lamp, perhaps something which was like a silhouette that you could easily recognize as being like an interior space type thing. So I'm not saying that you necessarily do that, but something along those lines which makes it clearer. I kind of agree. The other thought I had with the decorating one is that I think that the relationship of the space between them is important. So like the space between that top left-hand small circle and the big rectangle underneath it is quite different from the space between that rectangle and the bigger circle, for instance. So I kind of feel like those spaces should be very carefully kind of aligned. You know, they should feel like they fit together kind of in a way which is considered as design, because it's about decorating. So it's about them being kind of very carefully thought about, considered. The other one that looks a bit odd to me is the dance one, relative to all the other ones. That one seems very kind of fluid and loose.
It goes with the yoga one.
Yeah, it goes with the yoga one, that's true. But the other people one don't go with it. Yeah. Maybe if the other people, because it also kind of goes quite well with the headphones one, so the music one.
Okay, so maybe like add the people in the same kind of like way that those two.
I think that the other people the one which is for people should be like those two. Yeah, I think.
Okay.
So. On the one where you have the laptop, you see the keyboard. I think that the keys should follow the angle of the bottom of the keyboard, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I wasn't like exactly sure how to like angle it up.
I'll show you how to do it. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So you have, right now, you've got this, right? You've got this rectangle. You've given it some perspective by taking this and giving it an angle. If you then take these, I'm going to lock this round 2. And then with these ones, I'm going to group them first of all. And then if we choose the free transform tool, you could do it. There's a variety of different ways we could do it, but this is one way that we could do it. If you take the free transform tool, which is probably hidden. I'm going to take that away. We'll do it this way then. So if we try free distort, you could pull the shape out here, like this, so that it's an angle. It would also be easier, to be honest with you, to make it match the same angle as this, is if you started with this bottom shape being the same angle as the squares. Unlock that. So if you start off with just a flat rectangle, and then you do them all together. I'll just group it. And then here's another way you could do it. So we could do it that same method I just showed you, the free distort, and then just pull it out from the side here. That's one way.
Okay.
The other way that you could do it is to choose Effects, 3D, Rotate, and then you would choose Front, and then I would tilt it like that, and then add some perspective. So you can add however much perspective you want at that point. So that would be another way of doing it. Okay?
Yeah, okay. Cool.
So whichever way is easy for you. There used to be a tool where we could do free transform. I don't see it now for some reason. It's pretty weird. I'm gonna have to investigate that. Seems like it's disappeared. I hadn't noticed that. Anyway, so there's a couple of different ways that you could do it.
Okay, yeah, cool. Thanks.
Let me go back. You were sharing your screen, I was sharing your project, wasn't
You're showing mine.
I? Okay. Did you have any more suggestions, any more comments?
They all feel like they're not all quite the same size.
Yeah.
So that.
By the way, Melissa, on the circle around the sunny days thing, I think that was my suggestion to Anna actually, and the reason for it was because the landscape was just two lines, and they seemed like they were sort of floating. But I kind of understand what you're saying. Maybe if you cut off the circle at the top, and just had the landscape in that circular shape. You know what I mean? So you don't get the sky part of the circle. You just have the bottom. Maybe try it that way.
Oh, I get that though. Yeah.
Maybe instead of a circle, a window.
Like a square, you mean?
Yeah, like an open window towards
like
the
you're
sunshine.
looking through a window. Ah, that's an interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're looking out of a window. Yeah, that's kind of a nice idea.
Like a sandwich to me. It doesn't look like cleaning.
Which one? Oh, the cleaning. Oh, yeah, the bottom right-hand corner. I think it's the thing which has the crosses on it. Is that the sponge?
Yeah.
Or it's like a cloth or something, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because it says cleaning, you can figure it out. But in the beginning, I thought it was a sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's part of it is maybe if this is true of your the makeup as well. Like if you look at your makeup with the lipstick and on the bucket on the cleaning, it goes back to that sort of giving it some dimension. Let me share my screen again. I'm going to show you this on Illustrator again. I just did this demo, and I can't remember whether you were here or not, Anna. I think it might have been before you got here. But like when you're making something which is a cylinder.
Oh, I think I was, and then my internet cut out, so I had to leave. And
Oh, okay. So you start off with two ellipses, one at the top and one at the bottom. So on yours, you've got an ellipse here for the top of the bucket, but at the bottom it's flat. And the same is true on this one. Like you've got an ellipse at the top of the lipstick, but then you've got this line that goes through here, which flattens it. And the same at the bottom. And the same at the bottom of this. Although you've rounded the corners, it's still flat right at the very bottom. So if you started like this with two ellipses, when you're making the bucket, and then you go across and make a rectangle that combines them. So you select these two shapes, the rectangle and the ellipse, and unite them. And then bring this ellipse to the front again. Then you have something which is a cylinder, you know? So for the lipstick, you can then take this shape again, put it here, bring it to the front. Yours is black, so then you could change this to the black color. Get rid of the stroke. Scale this to a smaller size. So I'm going to hold Option as a scale, so it scales towards the middle. So that kind of goes into maybe a little bit bigger than that. So it's following that same ellipse all the time. And then the top side of this, I can pull this up. This would also have a bit of a curve, which we could create by using the anchor point tool and just dragging on it a little bit. This one would want to go vertical. There we go. And then you can extend how long this cylinder is by using the direct selection tool and selecting over those points. You can just nudge it down. So it's just moving those points and leaving the other ones where they are. You can get it to whatever length you want it to be at. And then the same with the line that draws across the lips, across the lipstick. We can just cut this now here with the scissors and cut it here. And then we can delete this bit, and then you'd have another line that goes across in the right position. You follow that?
Okay, yeah, I get that. It's really helpful.
So it's the same thing. So it's the same thing on this, as this, as this. It's just using that. It's basically what you're doing is you're extruding a shape. So actually, I can show you another way to make a cylinder, which is maybe easier to understand. You start with a circle. I would make this just a middle gray to begin with. There's something like this, with no stroke. And then go to Effects, 3D, Extrude and Bevel. And then go to Isometric Top. And then extrude it to whatever length you want. And then press OK. And then when you expand it, Object, Expand Appearance, you can select all of this bit right here and unite it. Then you can make this just into a black and white stroke. I don't know which one's easier to understand. They both end up giving you the same end result.
No, yeah, they're both different. Yeah, I think maybe the first one's a little bit easier to do, but
yeah. It's weird the way that stroke comes out on this one.
So then for like the sponge, for it to be more to like understand the idea of it, should I just like not do that one, or should I like do a different shape for it?
Wait a minute, say that again.
For the sponge, for the cleaning one, should I do a different like shape, or
for the sponge itself, you mean? Yeah, I think it's the shape of the sponge that throws me off.
Okay.
And I think it's also the cross going across it actually throws me off. I didn't understand what that was. I actually thought when I first looked at it, I thought it was a steak with like a grill mark on it.
Yeah, I thought it looked like a piece of toast. So, I don't know if the bucket reads as a bucket. That's a bucket, right?
Yeah. Maybe if the bucket had some water coming over the top of it as well, it might help. So like if you made a cylinder, this is actually a better one. If you had a cylinder like this as the bucket, I think the way that the handle fits is important, and also like maybe adding some liquid. So if I wanted to add some liquids inside of this, I could do this and then divide those. So I duplicate that shape again. Well, I could either divide it and then delete this one away, or I could use the shape builder tool and option click to get rid of that one. You see how then it's got that like depth down?
Yeah.
Or at least it has the illusion of creating that depth down into it. Or the other thing you could do is you could have, I would probably do this with a pen tool and just have like some of the soapy water like over the edge. So I'd have to clean up the edges a little bit, but something like that. Looks a bit too much like beer though for my liking, that one. But maybe I would perhaps go with the idea of having the water just below the level. So if we select those, shape builder, hold options in minus, delete that. And then for the handle, what I was thinking is that maybe the handle should go from here.
Okay.
And then come out, and then come back like that. Oops. Get rid of the fill. That I think would read more like a bucket. The other thing you might do as well is if I select the bottom of the bucket, and then double click on the scale tool. Set it to about 90% and then bring it in slightly.
Okay.
I think for me,
I think it looks better because it almost looked like a can of paint. That looks more
Yeah.
like a bucket.
Right.
Okay.
And then for the sponge, what I was thinking for the sponge is if you had a shape kind of like this, where you have two ellipses, and then you connect these together. So really you'd want to have these fit exactly on there. I'm not quite getting it exactly right, but I'll just do part of it. So then if I select over here and use the shape builder tool, you can build these shapes together. And see, this one would need to overlap here. It's not quite doing it. I can option click to delete that one, and then we could keep that curve. Or the other way you could do the same shape actually is to add a point here, add another one there, and then we can delete that point. So I think it would be, this is the way I sort of envision the symbol of a sponge would be that kind of shape from above, and then you make it three-dimensional. So if I just cut this one in half, by drawing a shape over the top and doing minus front, then I reflect this one over that point by option clicking and setting it to vertical and hitting copy. And then I unite these by using Pathfinder. Once I've got to that point, I'm going to set it like we did with the cylinder. I could do effects 3D, extrude and bevel, isometric top, and then I can expand it. Select everything around this edge, unite it, and then set that to black and white. So there's a little bit here I missed. There we go.
How did you set it to black and white?
So when you first make it a 3D shape, if I go back a bit, it's just an appearance, right? So then when we expand it, the way that it shows you this gradient is through a series of separate shapes, which are slightly different grays. So if you look at it in outline mode, it looks like this. But really, I want all of this to be one shape. So if I select it like this, I'm using the group selection tool. I can then unite all of that together to make one shape. And then I can select all of this bit, unite that. And then I'm just going to drag across here and unite everything. See if I get everything. There we go. So then you've got these two shapes. I can then set it to the default color down here at the bottom of the tool panel. I'm going to adjust what I want. So I don't know, that's kind of what comes to mind to me, is that sort of shape when I think of like a sponge for cleaning.
No, yeah, I think that's better. Yeah, definitely.
Yours is turning into something, because you're doing this with the laptop and you're doing this with the cleaning one and then the lipstick. They're all having kind of a bit of a 3D look to them, actually, aren't they? They may be on the camera as well. Maybe on the camera you could make that one 3-dimensional.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what, but like if you did, let me think. I don't know. I don't think you want to make them. See this one as well, the tea bag one, actually, in a very simple way, has already got a sort of dimension to it, doesn't it? It has a little bit of perspective going on, so it's quite subtle, and so does the music one, actually. The shopping one doesn't, so maybe that one as well, you could add some dimension to it. So like if you took a box, the bag is basically a box, right? If you take the bag, it's got a front and a side. So right now you have it where it's just the front view, right? But if you put a side panel on here, and then you could make it feel like it has some dimension to it by simply taking this panel and moving it up a little bit, and taking this panel and moving it up a little bit, and then it would be 3-dimensional. So depending on the realism that you want to create, you could also add perspective, which means that this end would be shorter than this end. Oftentimes with symbols, when they add dimension, they add isometric dimension, which is there is no vanishing point. So it's very stylized 3D. But that's something you can think about. But I think it would help if they all had, like the ones that you can, if they added that similar level of dimension. It doesn't have to be very complicated. It's a very slight element to it. Okay. But I think you're pretty close. You just need to kind of tighten up the consistency. So there, like this one, you've got a lot of black. This one's got a lot of black. This one's got a lot of black. But most of the other ones are sort of absent of those big solid black areas. They're just line. So either add some black into some of the others. Like on here, one of the frames could be filled with black, or maybe two of the frames could be filled with black. In the landscape, maybe the front hill is solid black, you know. And then maybe on the camera, the lens is black. And maybe even one side of the camera or something like that, you know. Or you get rid of all the solid blacks altogether and you just have a stroke. And then the other thing to look at is look at the areas where they're not so understandable, like the decorating one and the cleaning one, and try to make them more easy to understand. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So those are due next Monday. And then you were here in the class, right? You just had to step out. Or it dropped you off or something?
Barely.
Okay, so I'll post the recording later, but one thing I'd gone over is I introduced the next project and the next exercise sheet. So for the exercise sheet, there is a video that I have to post still for that goes over it, but I basically did the demo in the class. So when I post the Zoom meeting class, it'll have that in there as well. And I think I'll post also these critiques. So if you go back over it,
Yeah, that's helpful.
It'll be a bit of a pain having to search through it because they'll be so long. But at least you'll have it, and then you can go through some of the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay?
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right.
So, if we're all done, I think I'm going to take off. You okay?
We're done.
Yep, I'm good.
Okay.
Right.
If you need any help, let me know.
I will. All right. Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys. See ya.